Look at us now, tip to tip.
Ooh, Jesus.
Oh.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita?
Yes!
My God!
It's us doing what we love. But it's time to bang. Yeah, right? It's Friday. You know what that means? You ain't got S to do. It's time to put your face hole up against ours. It's the best damn combat sports show they ever created. One morning after we lost the World MMA Awards Best MMA Programming offering. Congratulations to Dana White Contender Series. It is the M to the K, the Morning Combat. I'm that alpha fella, the beige guy right here, Brian Campbell. My co-host is from Washington, D.C. And if you don't think he's ready to talk some smack about UFC 310 and get you fired up about tomorrow, you're crazy. Luke Thomas, in addition to UFC 310, it's also Pearl Harbor Day tomorrow. How do you plan on celebrating?
I bought this at the grocery store. I'm gonna make this with Tukey.
Okay.
How fucking awesome is this? How awesome is this?
I'm like, how do you celebrate that bombing that started World War II? You're like, by bombing the porcelain inside the Thomas house. Okay.
I took Tukey to the grocery store and I saw this and I was like, it's time to train you, Padawan. It's time to train you.
Train you in the ways. LT, how the hell are you? You doing good? You fired up? I mean, dude, Shavkat versus Garry Machado. Garry is coming up, and with all respects out to that main event, dude, I can't freaking wait for this fight.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the card in general tomorrow is quite good. It's just I haven't slept because Barbas's health is now failing again, and so I'm tired. I'm tired, bro. I mean, I got it for today. I'll have it for today, but I am. I'd be lying if I said I was like, I feel great and refreshed. Yeah. No, it's not that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, look, just bite down. I'll fly the plane here. Okay, we'll land it. It's no problem. We're gonna have a great show for you today. Obviously, looking at most things UFC 310 preview and prediction. We'll check in on the latest news. We got a boxing all Mexican rematch doubleheader coming up on Saturday from Top Rank. And also, by the way, how about the UFC 311 news? All right, Omaha, styly in Los Angeles as we get an absolutely loaded card. All that and then some. Tall, pale, and handsome. It's your boy BC LT. Like and subscribe, please, to help our futures. There you see our social channels. You can also follow our individual YouTube channels. And why don't we say hello to the third member of the team, our trusty director, producer, and lead gambling degenerate. It's the bong ripper himself, the LIL, Luke Nocita of the Main Card Minute Pod. Luke, that's a longer intro than you deserve. How the hell are you?
I'm good. I love that intro. All those titles are very accurate. Looking forward to the fights this weekend, man. We actually got a really good card.
There's a lot. Like I always say, like it's got to be my shit. There's my shit on this card. When there's not my shit on the cards, I'm going to tell you this sucks. Luke, there's a lot of my shit on here.
What's your I don't know, not the best fight in the card, but the one that's got you most steamed up in the dungarees?
Outside of that co-main event, which I call the best fight on the card, it is Nate Landwehr versus the Korean Superboy, Doo-Hoo Choi. They are going to bang, Luke. It's going to be.
They're going to have intercourse,
and then the Flat Earthers will take over. I mean, it's a wild opening pay-per-view card. So I'm in tune. I'm ready. I'm fired up. Let's do it. Let's bang Tui. Don't buy our merch at the moment, but maybe someday, Luke, right?
Yeah. I mean, we'll have updates about that. Just stay tuned.
All righty then. We will also be closing the show today with your fan submissions, dead wrong, and you know that email address, morningcombat@gmail.com. Don't be afraid to say hi to Mikey over there who handles all of your stick picks. Thank you so much. Luke, anything you want to say about life, healthcare CEOs, Pardon Sons, Jan 6? What do you got on your mind today? Anything?
Alex Pereira won, I think, Fighter of the Year last night at the World MMA Awards, and he said, never stop chasing your dreams. And I want to tell folks that's really bad advice. You should absolutely not do that. You should absolutely ignore anyone who tells you. Because here's the thing. If you're Alex Pereira, yeah, you're going to achieve your dreams. You're going to be like, wow, it really worked out. This was great. And then the 99.9% of the rest of us who tried and failed, you're going to be like, oh, right, this was a gigantic mistake.
That's the worst advice I've ever heard anyone give in front of a microphone.
The best advice. You chase your dreams, more likely than not, you're going to end up miserable. You should get good at something and chase that. That's what you should
While
do.
I understand the extra amendment you're adding on, it still is setting people up for a warning track power life of what if failure, Luke. And you know that deep inside, okay? Because I think everybody out here is special and has a calling, Luke. They just got to get out of their own way and find it. They got to figure that shit out.
Calling, some people have a calling. More people than not just need to get good at something and then follow that. Don't chase dreams. It's a bad idea.
All right. Well, there's the yin and the yang, the dark and the light. It's like, wow, there you go. Pick which side you want. You can catch us later in the week on YouTube. Seriously, I'm excited to get down with this. Luke, I know you'll be back on the call tonight for LFA on the undercards doing your creative hosting, directing, which I think is such a cool gig. Will you also be post-fighting on Saturday night at the end of 310?
Yeah, you can catch me tonight. Like, they hit me up literally yesterday out of nowhere, and they were like, hey, you got time to do some LFA stuff for Friday? I said, okay, sure, So we did, and I'll be doing that tonight at 8:30 p.m. 8:30 p.m. I'm going to look at Reggie Jackson's butthole here in just a second, I'm sure.
You got to give him credit. He does not do a lot of things well in life. He protects that anus from the rest of the audience at a fairly aggressive level.
I mean, he's wiping it all over your equipment, which is to me somewhat interesting, but nevertheless.
He's the fourth member of our team. Luke, before we get into the UFC 310, I'm a little disappointed about something going on tonight. Not you and LFA. I'm fired up for that. But tonight is Power Slap.
Is it?
Yeah, in Las Vegas. And did you hear that Emily Whitmire, friend of the program, a paid actress or unpaid actress on documentary number 6, when we won that award in Las Vegas, she's pulled the PVZ and is going to compete on Power Slap tonight. That made Reggie very unhappy. Wow. All right, Reg.
What do you even say about something like that?
I'm almost at the point where I'm like, if you're willing to do that, just go all the way with the only pipes. Just, you know what I'm saying? Just like, because I would respect that.
It'd be far more lucrative.
I would respect that more than seeing legitimate combat athletes sign up for Power Slap. Like, I hate that shit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what her financial situation looks like. All I'll say is this: I hope it's worth it for her. I hope it's worth it.
All right, I won't be watching, but I will be watching Saturday night.
Be watching.
So let's get into it right now. Topic number 1, you know it. It's UFC 310, the final pay-per-view of 2024 for the world's leading MMA promotion, T-Mobile Arena. A title fight atop the bill. And as we begin this show, according to our friends at DraftKings, your main event for the Flyweight Championship brings your favorite, Alexandre Pantoja, seeking the third defense of the title he won from Brandon Moreno, is a -250 favorite against the +205 UFC debutant and former 2-time Ryzen Bantamweight champion, Kai Asakura. Luke, it's been a little bit slow in terms of this thing building up some buzz and some hype, and it's certainly been overshadowed by what Shavkat and Garry are doing in the co-main event. But I watched the UFC Countdown show, and it just got me so fired up for this actual matchup, and not just the size Asakura brings as he cuts back down to 125 here, but the flash, the power. This has all the makings to be one of these sneaky, quiet, absolute wars that is going to teach us a lot about the top of this division. How fired up are you as we enter Saturday's main event?
Yeah, I mean, I did between the links yesterday. You know our friends over there, Mike Heck and Jed Mishu, yeah. And they were talking about like expectations for the main event. Now, the expectations for the co-main event for me are going to be very, very different for a lot of reasons. But for the main event, and I was trying to say this to them, I was like, dude, here's how I look at it. This overall card at UFC 310 is excellent. You could argue it's one of the very best cards of the year, top to bottom anyway. Not so much star power at the top, but quality up and down the line. For me, the co-main event is the real kicker. And so, I think a lot of people are like, they fetishize, like, how are they trying to like demonstrate how much they love the flyweights as some kind of like signal about how much they like MMA more generally. And I don't really do that. I like Alexandre Pantoja. I think he's very good. I think he's very fun and to a degree underrated as well. But I don't have like some deep affinity for the division. But it's kind of interesting because he is putting together a pretty great win record. He has beaten some really good fighters. And Asakura is, if nothing, a total wild card. They faced off yesterday. He looked gigantic compared to Pantoja. He's limited but dangerous at the same time. And so it's like, I don't even have any like, what does it mean for the division kind of feels. I just feel like it's a bonus fight. And as a bonus fight, it's a UFC title fight. It's almost like a can't lose scenario. It doesn't necessarily hold sway over what MMA is going to be like in 2025 or anything crazy like that. It's just a fun, awesome fight that could go a lot of different directions and could be boring, but in all likelihood probably won't be. I feel great about it.
Dude, I'm so fired up for it. And I had an interesting debate with our colleagues or your former colleagues at CBS Sports this week about the division in general at 125. Is it trending in the right direction? Should it stay around? I've got to say, ever since Henry Cejudo kind of saved it by winning the championship and then quickly exiting, I feel like it's been as fun as it's ever been. Yes, there was a long stretch of tremendous all-action parity as Moreno and Figueiredo traded the belts in their 4-fight series on the regular. But Pantoja not only has sustained the excitement in terms of badass fights, in my opinion, but he's actually built some decent sustainability atop, which I don't think a lot of us assumed he would, considering he won the title in his mid-30s, did it in such a bruising, violent, incredible war there against Moreno. But he's put together not just, success at the top, but it's been close. Urseg, came pretty damn close, as did a few others on this run. But he's got a 6-fight win streak. And for anyone to say, well, maybe the division's not in a good spot because, look, we need a newcomer to come in and make the rare pro, UFC debut in a title fight. If we can throw to the full screen graphic, Nocita, let's not forget why we're in this position. Not just because Kai Asakura became free and because he's so fun, but Alexandre Pantoja is currently 9-0 against the top 10 in this division. And Luke, that it really speaks to where we were before him, where it was fun, but you really got that feeling like anybody can win the title on any given night. And maybe we still have that feeling to some degree, but I'm glad that you took some time to shout out what Pantoja has put together of late. I'm waiting for it to run out because the fights have been so close and he's leaning into such a all-action style at times and taking big punishment and delivering it back. But when you bring in Asakura's size, power, and attitude, dude, this is going to be another gnarly fight. So I'm ready. I'm fired up. I'm good to go here on this one.
Yeah, there are. I mean, you have to ask yourself: are there scenarios where this could go? I don't think dreadfully or something, but not necessarily barn burning, sort of run of the mill, standard control type things. Yes, that is definitely possible. We have to be realistic about it. Also, BC, the weigh-ins are going to be happening in the next 45 minutes, right? Let's see if he can make weight. The guy hasn't made weight at 125 since 2017 is what I read, I believe.
Sure.
So it's been some time. However, the number of permutations where this goes in a great direction is high. And understand something. Andy Hickey MMA put out a stat. Japanese fighters in title fights in the UFC, 0-6-1. It'd be historic if Kai Asakura won. It's never really happened. Kyle Uno got the draw once at lightweight, and that was about it. But no one else has really ever won a title. That's a big fucking deal. And really for someone to make their UFC debut and they're getting a title fight, and he's a dominant puncher. Also, folks forget Pantoja's nickname is the Cannibal, which is kind of fitting in a certain kind of way. Like, this is what I mean. Is this the fight that matters the most? Is the fight game going to hang on this? Well, no, it's not any of that stuff. But it's high level. It's interesting. It could be weird. It could be historic. I just don't get what's not to like.
I'm with you. And Reggie loves the flyweights as well. So very excited about that. He's more a fan of the female flyweights, but that's fine.
Course, yes.
Look, when I watched the countdown show, I really kind of woke up to the star power that Asakura does bring with the following and, which started with his older brother and then them creating their own YouTube channels. And he's got his whole fight career, documented by his own camera crew. And if you saw him at the press conference with the dyed hair, the sunglasses, and maybe the uncharacteristic, because this had been a pretty respectful build, I think, until Thursday when Asakura kind of called out or tried to call out Pantoja for not selling the fight enough or not being, as emotional as he needed to be in trying to hype it up. But if we got anything that was fun or fireworks, maybe it came at media day. If we can watch this, when Pantoja sat down and Asakura just kept lingering, looking at him.
There's been a lot of talk about pound for pound over the past few months with the John Jones and Dana White situation. You're number 11 on that list right now. Do you feel you should be a bit higher, and maybe with a win on Saturday or even right now, you deserve to be in that top 5?
Yeah, of course. Maybe the fans think about the pound for pound just a numbers, just one more ranking. But I think to all the fighters, this is something huge, you know. That's something everyone want to be the best fighter of the world, you know. And I try to do that too, you know. I try to be the best fighter of the world. And I know Saturday I have a big chance to climb this rank.
Did you notice that your opponent was standing here watching you for a little bit? What do you
First
think
time I see him.
What do you think of that he's kind of scoping you out?
You look nice, yeah? Japanese style.
Look, Asakura would wave to him and smile, and he was only standing like a good 25 feet away from him. So it was an interesting move, but that's the flash side of it. From the substance style, what can you tell us about what to expect here from Asakura? I mean, we've come a long way, Luke, from my issues with Ryzen that were unintentional there, but this kid can really fight. And when he's got victories, which he does over Manel Kopp, Juan Archuleta, and Kyoji Horiguchi, it says something.
Horiguchi also beat him too, though. Let's be honest about that. But I actually recommend everyone. I think I saw it. Where did I see it the other day? I think ESPN's MMA YouTube account, I might have that right, published the fight between him from Ryzen and Juan Archuleta. And I really recommend folks watch that, because Juan Archuleta, again, it's a bantamweight fight. Juan Archuleta is very meaningfully different in a lot of respects from Pantoja, but there's a lot of similarities too. You'll learn a lot from that one. And there's moments where, for example, if you're thinking about Asakura, what would go badly for him? He does have good wrestling, but there was times where Archuleta was able to duck under and get behind him and get the back, but it was like at the end of the round, so it didn't really matter, you know. And there was a time where he had him dead to rights on a takedown, but in the ring, Asakura's feet were behind and underneath the ropes, and he wasn't hooking it hardcore, but he was kind of pressing into it, and it makes him hard to pull out. That will not be the case in the cage. So I don't think he has bad wrestling, but I definitely think an aggressive wrestler who can mix it up can obviously have some success with that. On the other hand, you can really see where he excels. Absolutely, completely unafraid to exchange in the pocket, an accurate puncher, backing up and going forward. And I want to pay attention to something. He finished that fight with Archuleta when Archuleta was shooting in, and he intercepted him with a knee. But he's got skip knees moving forward as well. So this is a guy who really is a dynamic puncher. He is accurate. He can scramble, unafraid of contact. And this is what I mean. Does Pantoja have better jiu-jitsu and wrestling than Kai Asakura? Again, the size may make this a little bit harder to say exactly, but I do think obviously he's got better jiu-jitsu. He probably has better wrestling too. But Asakura is big. He is experienced. And more to that point, dude, Pantoja takes risks, and we love him for that. But you take the wrong risk against this guy, he'll break your jaw. He absolutely has that kind of power. So this is what I mean. So it's a very, very competitive fight. It's a dangerous fight for either guy. I hope the winner gets big spoils. And as I mentioned, a Japanese fighter has never hoisted UFC gold. Could be a historic night as well. Huge
moment, just like when Weili knocked out Andrade. That was a big breakthrough in China. And we know what the UFC is trying to do in that greater Asian market there. I mean, this could be a big development. Asakura sat down at media day, and it seems like his biggest message was that he's going to bring something to the table on Saturday that UFC fans are not ready for. Let's listen to him.
Fans they've been eagerly anticipating your debut.
そうですね、海外の人というか UFC
The UFC fans have never seen anybody like me fight ever before. I always aim to go for a KO finish. I'm an exciting fighter, and I'm here to bring excitement back to the flyweight division.
Obviously, Alexandre Pantoja has been, he's had a lot of exciting fights as of recently, but he's getting up there in age. So I guess, what do you make of him as a champion and opponent that you're facing on Saturday?
いや、彼は本当に素晴らしい選手。
I don't have any feeling that Pantoja's too old. I think actually he's probably at the peak of his performance. He's an excellent all-round fighter. And but for me, it's obvious that going forward in the future, there needs to be a change, and there needs to be a new king in town, and that's why I'm here to take over the flyweight division.
I'm here for it, Luke, but at plus 205, How realistic is it here for him to get the job done? Because I'm leaning on it. I'm gonna press the button, Luke. I'm gonna take Asakura by finish, by upset win. It really watching tape and really seeing his demeanor this week, he's won me over. But is that just wrapping paper when it comes to Pantoja potentially bringing him to the ground and humbling him?
If there's no question in my mind, Pantoja can get him down and then win rounds, maybe even sub him out. I don't think that's crazy, but certainly at a bare minimum, take him down, get his back, and then win a round. I just don't think that's in any way hard for, and it should not be hard for anyone to see. The question is, can you do that either the course of 25 minutes or put him away beforehand? That one's a little harder, although certainly definitely still possible. I actually don't. I would be curious to get Long Island Luke's position here, because this is an interesting one for me. Again, Pantoja, Long Island Luke, you would agree, is more well-rounded. But in key spots, Asakura is much more dangerous. He's sitting at our friends at DraftKings have Asakura at plus 215. I feel like there's value there.
There's value, but I'm not taking it, man. You're talking about Pantoja's got 15 UFC fights. Asakura has 0. I know he's a vet, but still, you got to factor that in. Also, you talked about
hold on. Let's back up a step. What about the miles on Pantoja?
Dude, I still just let me get my point out. I still don't think it's whatever. Anyways, Asakura's 2 best wins, Horiguchi and Kopp. He got finished by both of them as well. Also, Pantoja beat Kopp. He's beaten you saw that top 10 graphic. I could throw it up again here. Look at this, man. He's beaten Roy Val twice. That's the #1 contender. He's beaten Brandon Moreno 3 times, #2 contender. I mean, I just can't go against
you. And Horiguchi is his main sparring partner at ATT.
Great point. So he's trying to avenge. I mean, I know they're 1-1, but he's trying to avenge his teammate here. You know, this has Pantoja written all over it. My bet, though, fight to go the distance, plus 225. I think it goes long. I don't have total confidence in Pantoja, so I just like it to go long. Flyweight title fight.
This is the thing. This is why the Horiguchi fight to me is the Horiguchi fights, I should say, are so interesting to me. BC is like, yeah, he lost to Horiguchi, but he also, I think he stopped him with strikes as well. I double checked that if I got that wrong. I'm going off memory. It's like, is he better than Horiguchi? Not necessarily, but on the right night, he can absolutely knuckle anyone that good into the dirt. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is that night tomorrow night? We shall see. But this notion that, like, because Pantoja, again, he is a overall more skilled fighter, and skills tend to win fights. But Asakura is dangerous. He's dangerous in key spots, and I don't think we can just look the other way on some of those miles. So, you can pick who you want, but I think Asakura winning would not in any way be shocking whatsoever.
I agree with you. Asakura 21-4 overall. This will be almost a year layoff, as his last fight came against Archuleta on New Year's Eve of last year. But you're talking about that Horiguchi series. He knocked out Kyoji Horiguchi in 68 seconds, did Asakura in 2019. And then when they rematched for the title in New Year's Eve of 2020, he got knocked out himself 2.5 minutes into the first round. So he takes big chances, but that's the thing coming in. But it's like, Pantoja also has a beard, and he also is going back to the shave head right now. And Luke, I don't mean to make this a stereotypical thing, but dude, these Brazilians, they age a lot later than everybody else. Can we wake up and say that out loud, Luke?
The Brazilian, I mean, can you, this is a serious thing, or not like, like a deadly, I don't mean that way, but I'm trying to be genuine here. It's hard to imagine what MMA would be like but for Brazilians. Imagine if Brazil never got involved and you just didn't have that, like how much rich history, how much about the fight game, how much different heroics, styles, you name it. Like, they have defined what has made MMA great from literally day one, basically from day one. You cannot understand modern MMA or MMA at all without them. And that's not just true what they did in the United States. That's also what they did over in Japan as well, kind of conquering that market to a degree on top of it. But in early NHB, or that was still mostly Japanese, but then eventually when that morphed into full-on MMA, the Brazilians kind of took over from there. Like this is who they are. But, they're not superhumans. They're just humans. They're very, very good at what they do, but they are just human. I don't think it's crazy to favor Pantoja. It's really not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is even if you think Pantoja can and will win, it's more of a risky fight than just a pure skills comparison can show you.
He's a bantamweight. I mean, he's legitimately a bantamweight on the world level, and he's cutting down here with that power. And you mentioned about breaking jaws. Did you see those X-rays of one of his fights where he did that viciously to somebody?
I was mentioning that for that reason. Like, he's got that kind of power. You don't see that a lot. Maybe at bantamweight, but you don't see it at flyweight. Again, let's see what he looks like on the scales. That's a big X factor too, by the way. Let's see.
Look, I'm going to roll the dice on Asakura. I'm feeling it. And I picked Pantoja originally and changed it last minute here, but I'm riding that wave. Are you willing to go on the record and put your money where your mouth is under this non-okay bet setting?
I mean, again, I definitely think Pantoja is better. I'll put a flyer on Asakura.
Oh,
I think he's got a shot. I think he's got a
shot. It's time, Luke. Let's do it here. Can't wait either way, but let's get into this co-main event. Welterweight division, #1 contenders fight. The winner will face Bilal Muhammad, who had to withdraw due to medical reasons from this original main event. But how about the balls on both of these guys not needing an interim title, just needing each other? This is the most amount of victories between two Chowder. This is the most amount of victories between two unbeaten opponents in UFC history, besting the record that Adesanya and Paulo Costa had done. So we know what this is coming in. But when we talk about the odds, Shavkat 18-0 with 18 stoppages, a -355 favorite, according to DraftKings, and a +280 underdog for Ian Machado Garry. So Luke Thomas, we've spent most of the week talking up the storylines, talking up Ian Garry's guts, the way he's carrying himself. I've been completely impressed by that. And you do have to factor in the sparring history between them, which we'll get into in a second. But is it realistic over 5 rounds that this guy can do this to Shavkat, who maybe outside of taking some friendly fire in the Jeff Neal fight, we've really never seen F around in there?
This is my view about Rakhmonov. You give him 25 minutes to find a finish, and I genuinely am not sure who can stand up to that. Now, let's be clear. That's not me declaring that it's impossible. That's not what I'm saying. It just feels like right now you've got a guy this prodigious as a finisher, where literally all of his professional fights are wins, are stoppages. Somebody that good at stopping people. And again, some of that comes at risk. That is maybe somewhat inadvisable, but you get what I'm saying. That is a very, very tough guy to play prevent defense around. You could do it for 15 minutes. 25 makes me a lot more skeptical. But beyond that, he is more skilled than Ian Garry. Now, he's not more skilled than Ian Garry defensively. Obviously, there were some issues in the Jeff Neal fight. But in general, and certainly when it comes to offense, he is vastly more skilled, has way more ways to win, has great combination between strikes and submissions. I did a tape study on this guy. You can check it out, where, he a lot of times will knock guys down, but even if he gets them off of a throw, he'll forego gripping and then control positions for once they hit the ground, he's immediately throwing ground and pound, bending over at the waist. And the trade-off is that he doesn't get to control you, but he has a narrow window where he can bomb on you unobstructed, and he just goes to make that change and then builds off of damage from there. Like, he doesn't find these stoppages by accident. He's got a system built on making you get punished in the sort of cascading way the longer that time goes on. That's really what he does. I just have a hard time believing that Garry can. Do I think Garry can win rounds? Yes. Do I think Garry can stifle him offensively for maybe even like big stretches of the fight? Absolutely, BC. Gary's got good head movement. He's got great lateral movement. He's got good defensive awareness. He's got some decent counter striking as well. Like, he can do all those things.
Poised as shit, dude, too.
Yeah, he's poised. And by the way, like, the dude wants the smoke. Like, fucking salute. Like, he's going to be there for it. At the same time, if Rakhmonov is probably at some point going to be moving downhill on him, I don't think he can survive that. I just, there's too much offense of a guy with too much skills who's going to be in too much of an advantageous position. Dude, Garry backs up against every opponent he's ever faced. He's on the outside. You're going to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov for 25 minutes circling on the outside? Good luck, fucking. You're going to need it. Good luck.
Let's talk about that only hiccup on the radar, because Shavkat's 30 years old. He's 18-0. He stopped everybody. And obviously, if you rewatch the fights, there is this contrast between somebody who's so poised and patient, but almost takes vicious delight in delivering and slowly scientifically breaking you down in violent force, and then finishing you. I get why you have a hard on from here to Hanover, and Lorisenko is like donating money to Kazakhstan to support him. There's something she's doing with a t-shirt and everything, because she loves him so much, because there's like this, it's almost Golovkin like, where Golovkin had the cheesy smile and then you'd knock him out, then he'd knock you out in the ring. But it's even more sinister. Like, look, he approaches opponents, meaning Shavkat, as if they are fresh meat out on the hunting range in the forests of Kazakhstan. He's never worried. He's never, anything but focused and ready. So what do we do with that blip and the defense in the Jeff Neal fight? Is that an area that you believe Ian Garry can fill in and try to take advantage? Or are we even overblowing that there's an issue there?
No, there's an issue there. I mean, especially in that particular fight, he took a lot of risk unnecessarily, I think. He got the finish in the end, but there was a lot of times he was getting lit up, and that's a bad thing. And a guy like Garry has shown a capacity in the Jeff Neal fight himself with intercepting knees to be able to score on somebody like that. I don't think it's any way crazy to be like he can do that. And I know he stopped who's the other guy he did off an open side counter. He stopped him after getting beat up a little bit. No. Before all that, it was like his UFC debut. Whoever's UFC, Jordan somebody, I forget whose UFC debut. I can look it up here. His UFC debut for Ian Garry. He hit him with an open side counter. Yeah, Jordan Williams. Yeah, Jordan Williams, and he stopped him at 459. He can do that. It's like, I think he can land on Shavkat. I don't think he can knock him out. I really don't. Okay, let me back that. Let me stop before I get in trouble. It is obviously possible he could stop him with one of those or a head kick, because Shavkat can be a little bit reckless with that. I mean, these are things that you have to count and take seriously. But it's like, if we're comparing firepower and who's going to be underneath it for the vast majority of the time, I'd be a lot more worried about what Shavkat can do versus the opposite. So it's like, I do and also Ian Garry is going to be under duress and moving, not being able to plant his feet. In fact, I suspect Shavkat's going to make that a big part of his approach. Have Garry moving in such a way where he can't set his feet, where he can't sit down on his punches and really let go in that particular way. So again, I don't want to dismiss the notion Garry's just all defense and he could win by stifling offense. I think that is a huge component of what he does and central to his winning, but certainly not the only thing. It's just a little weird for me to focus on what Garry could possibly do with legitimate skills when compared to the vast array of demolition abilities that Shavkat's got in multiple phases, multiple ranges, and multiple locations of a fight, especially when Garry just backs up in circles against everybody. It's like, I take those things, but which one do you anticipate being more likely as a punishing result?
Yeah, and the interesting part about this being a 5-round fight, which I love, is that not only has Shavkat finished everybody, but no one's made it out of the third round against him. So there is that side of the brain that's telling you, if you give him 25 minutes to finish you as opposed to 15, no matter how good you are, he'll find it. But I also want to see what he looks like in those championship rounds. If this is a somewhat competitive fight, there's still parts of Shavkat that we just haven't seen because of his dominance level. Damn, I love this fight because of the unbeaten records, the moxie of both guys. But Luke, this fight week kind of started in a friendly manner. If you remember that these two have a sparring history about 3 years back at Kill Cliff FC, but it seemed to change to a much more a higher level of intensity at Thursday's press conference. Let's start off with the first clip when these two ex-teammates ran into each other in the hotel.
Good job. You good? How are you training? Good. You good, guys? You ready? Weight good? Ready? Of course you are. Of course you are. You're always ready. Always ready. Let's go, guys.
Did you see Charles? Ready to fucking go. Charles is ready to fucking go. He's like, yeah.
You can see Charles Oliveira, who's in Gary's corner there, was like ready to be by his side. But let's fast forward though to Thursday's press conference and the face-offs that happened afterwards.
Look at this.
Look at Shavkat's face and the glare and the
Dude, Shavkat is looking at this motherfucker like he is lunch meat. I mean, also his head is enormous. I didn't realize he got a big ass dome. But
dude, Eric, does it feel like Gary's almost trying to like friendly butter him up in a way? Like, hey, buddy, hey, it's one thing to be respectful, which I like that they're doing that. They have no reason to hate on each other, but it's almost like he's trying to bring back the demeanor they had in those sparring sessions when this one's going to be for real. And Shavkat is already in the mode where he's thinking about taking Gary's skin off and then putting the lotion in the basket and wearing it on the way home. All right. So, wow. Let's show that footage.
By the way, if I may, one thing I want to just point out that I think is kind of an interesting parallel between these guys. You mentioned like their undefeated records that they're combining here, 32, 33, and 0, whatever it is. But also something I found kind of interesting. They both fought Neil Magny. Then they both fought Jeff Neal. And then they both fought karate point fighters, Thompson for Rakhmonov and then MVP for Ian Garry. And you can decide who did better. I think obviously it was kind of boring, but certainly Ian Garry did better against Jeff Neal if we're measuring like, issuing damage but then not taking it. He certainly did better. I would say Rakhmonov did better against Neil Magny, even though Ian Garry beat his ass. But I would say against the karate point fighter, I would definitely give the edge. And they're different. Certainly, it's not apples to apples, but in that particular sense, I would give the huge edge to Shavkat Rakhmonov versus I thought Garry kind of limped past the finish line against MVP there a little bit.
I agree with you.
So, but it is interesting that they had these three kind of tiered things almost at the same time.
And I don't discredit Gary's ability in that MVP fight to just figure out what was going to be the path to victory and get the victory no matter what. Sometimes you do have to survive in advance. And I always reference when I thought Blachowicz looked terrible against Jacare for 5 rounds in a main event when he was climbing toward the title, but yet he kept damage away, got the win. We would have preferred for Ian Garry a fight before this fight, but the opportunity opened up and he's taking it. Is there enough to believe? Because Gary's biggest statement this week about the history of sparring between them has been, he hasn't fought at his most dangerous level against me, but I haven't done that against him because we were sparring and learning. And I think obviously if we believe Garry is a rising professional and very good, and I think that's all true, you're automatically going to kick it up a notch when you're in there with a higher level of danger. But if you rewatch that MVP fight, can that same man raise his game enough to compete with Shavkat? Because there were parts of Garry that were almost too safe in that fight.
I don't want to discount what is very possible, but I think that I think Garry has earned the position that he's in, and I think Rakhmonov has shined brighter in getting to the similar position. And I think that some of the things you saw in the MVP fight, it's like if he has some of those issues at all with a guy like Rakhmonov, the escape hatches that he was able to take advantage of against MVP simply will not be there against Rakhmonov. They just won't. Now, you could say MVP is going to have better striking defense or not get hit as easily, and there's something to be said for that. Absolutely. But it's like, dude, Rakhmonov's never even been dropped, much less like the people act like he's like, it's like Cody Garbrandt. Like, oh, you just got to touch him once and he's out of there. It's like Jeff Neal is a dominant puncher and gave him everything he could. And that was dangerous, but Rakhmonov just walked through it. This is what I mean. It's like, do you really believe that Gary's going to be able to hurt him? Certainly it is possible, in particular with a head kick and how fast he is. That less than the punches, less than the knee. It's more the head kick for me that I really got my eye on. But short of that, which is real, but short of that, dude, Rakhmonov has a vast array of punishment arsenal. Yeah, it's just hard for me to see, not that he could lose, but that he would get tuned up by Garry.
Look, a Garry head kick that could change the fortunes of the fight would almost have to come in a scenario in which Shavkat was going downhill, walking him down, picking him apart, and maybe getting to a point where Shavkat felt like he didn't have to feel the threat of Garry strikes. That, okay, if one slips through, it's not going to be a big deal. And it almost looked like he got lured into that against Neal, right? Where he was just like, yeah, I can take this. I'm not worried. And then suddenly we were like, oh shit, we're worried. it was probably a more aggressive version of what happened when Chimaev decided to brawl with Gilbert, right?
Yes. Yes, to a degree. To a degree. I mean, but even then, Gilbert dropped Chimaev in that second or third round. Remember, he sent him, and partly he was also off balance, but he went tumbling. Remember all that? Like, that never happened to Rakhmonov. That never ever happened. Like, you didn't see that with him. So I certainly, you can never be too confident. You can be like, oh, it didn't happen against this guy. There's no chance it'll happen against this guy. That's a classic way to just end up with egg on your face. I'm not making that argument. I'm just simply saying there's a lot of people focusing on some of the defensive liabilities of Rakhmonov and the firepower of Ian Garry as like that's the central tension. And I feel like what's actually the central tension is that some of that could be in play, but what's really going to be in play is they're eventually going to clinch. And when they clinch, what Garry does there to separate is actually what's going to define the fight. Because if Rakhmonov trips him out, gets on top, or gets his back, he's going to fuck him up royally. That, to me, is where it all comes down to. So that
shoot him like a
takedown defense, separating, risk control, whizzering, framing, whatever he's going to have to do depending on the scenario. Once Rakhmonov collects him, so to speak, that's where the fight to me is won and lost. Not is Rakhmonov going to walk into a head kick. Possible, but less likely to me than aforementioned.
Well, Long Island Luke, if you could tee up the footage of them 3 years ago in Kill Cliff FC in South Florida, get a little sparring touch, and I fully respect. Look, it's sparring; they're not going full speed, they're not going crazy. But
and also hold on. This is I want to make a very important point, if I may, BC, and I apologize for cutting you off.
Sure.
Look at where they are, everybody. This is, to me, one of the big problems. Even this gym, we've been in this gym. Nice people, fantastic facility. You can absolutely become a UFC champion here. It's got nothing to do with this gym in particular. It's how all MMA gyms I've seen are basically run. Look at where they're doing the striking. They're in open space, okay? So people think sparring is like, oh, I'm trying to win, just not going as hard. That is not what sparring is. Sparring can be that, but it can also be any number of things. The reason I bring this up is when you're on an open mat like that with 40 other fighters, you don't get to work on your cage control, either in corralling or escaping, because you just don't have the space, the same kind of spatial dimensions. It's not possible. You're working on other things. You're working on touch, reaction, baiting, reaction, jab, turning, the kinds of things you can do in a closed and confined space where you're kind of rotating around each other. That is not what happens in the octagon. And I actually feel like a lot of MMA fighters, including at the UFC level, do a lot of sparring, which, again, I think some sparring on the mat, on the floor like that is not only okay, great, but not enough sparring inside the cage, working on lateral movement and getting away, because you've done most of your striking sparring on an open mat like that. It will mess them up over the long term. Now, Garry's got good defense. The point I'm trying to make is, BC, for fans reading into this, and there's not a lot to read into it anyway, this is not one of those scenarios you can really look at, both because of the time that has elapsed and the spatial constraints that make it an unrealistic scenario relative to what we're going to get tomorrow.
Right. And it could have just been like opening warm-ups too, where they're just kind of shadow boxing around and just playing chess, on the feet like that.
BC, you've been to boxing gyms. I've been to boxing gyms. They'll do that in open space there too, but only for like touch games, like real individualized training. Whenever they're in like any kind of sparring stuff, it's in the ring. That's why they have much better movement overall.
So I was going to say they definitely have had sparring time in the cage or the ring surface there, because we've talked about the fact that, Shavkat talked this week at the media conference by ultimately saying that that Garry's wife filmed it, but didn't ask permission to show footage. So when some of the footage like this leaked out, it's kind of 50-50, whatever footage. And then Shavkat was like, oh, by the way, like I put him, I tapped him out. And of course you can argue, which Garry did, and we'll get to his response in a second, that happens. I think you have to realize that it's sparring, so it's problem solving, and you are going to put yourself in purposefully dangerous situations to continue to train and learn and how to navigate out of that. It does not fully simulate a fight. But before we get to Garry's take on that, I do have an important question for you. It might give you a level of confidence. Luke, I never thought Ryan Garcia would come through against Haney like he did earlier this year. There were a lot of factors that contributed to that. But 6 fights together in the amateurs. Ryan won 3 of them. And then we saw that leaked sparring footage where Ryan was landing that left hook earlier in their pro careers, like at will against him. Do you think there's something to the idea that Garry can be this confident because he's done time with this guy? He's gotten tapped out before. He's been in there. While we can always add the asterisk of they weren't going 100 miles an hour against each other, I'm wondering how much that is a gift for Garry in this scenario, that he's not afraid of him.
So I definitely think it plays a role. Absolutely. And I'll tell you exactly what. If you spar enough with someone, in particular in the wrestling and jiu-jitsu, you'll find areas where like you can rest. You'll find areas or moments or scenarios that you can force an entanglement that has a particular way of shutting down this person's game. And not just from watching tape, but from feeling it and being like, oh, right. This person might have a tricky bunch of setups for different things, and you've been hit with them, and now you know I cannot leave my arm in a shallow underhook and when we're 50-50, because every time I did when we were sparring, I got frequent flyer miles for it. Like, absolutely, you can know where the mines are in the minefield, and you can kind of tiptoe around it. That is a very, very, very real thing that can absolutely aid you. And listen, like when you train at a jiu-jitsu gym or a wrestling gym or an MMA gym and you spar with the same people over time, they figure out your game. Even if you're coming up at the same time or they're new and whatever, like you spar enough times, they can figure out your game and you can figure out their game. And that's why it's good to like go and train other places. It's good to go compete at times, depending on what your goals are, because you need people that are not, they don't know how to shut you down because they've sparred with you 150 times. They've never seen this stuff before. Garry's definitely going to have some advantages, and Shavkat to an extent as well. I think more on the defensive end when it comes to that kind of a thing. The problem for me is, while I think that could extend the life of the fight or keep Garry safe in certain circumstances, I do not believe it to be enough to stop what I consider to be something close to inevitable. It's a little strong too, but I don't. A better way to put it, my BBC, it can absolutely give him some help here. Can it tip the balance enough to put the fight in his favor? I am personally skeptical of that, while recognizing there is real value.
Sure. Let's put this topic to bed by hearing directly from Ian Machado Garry on this topic.
Obviously, we've heard Shavkat's perspective of your spars before. I'm curious if you could let us in on what you felt you took away from those.
He's phenomenally talented. He's an amazing fighter, but I think he and I will both tell you that we've never fought hard in the gym. We've not fought. We've always been learning and growing and practicing, and fighting is completely different. And what happens in the gym is cool, fair play. If you have any success in the gym, great. I've had success, he's had success. We have to do that on the bright lights and the big stage. That's what it's all about. He's only succeeded. I've only succeeded. So now let's put the both of us on those bright lights, on that big stage, co-main event, all the marbles on the line, and let's go have some fun and see what happens.
So it would be fair to say, right, he told Ariel that he made you tap in sparring. It would be fair to say that if he's taking anything away from that experience, he would be mistaken to do so.
If he wants to latch on to a moment of success in training from 2 years ago and thinks I'm the same fighter I was then he would be sadly mistaken. I don't believe he is going to be latching on to anything like that. I believe he is being honest, and he's saying this happened, which it did. I'm not turning around and say it didn't, but if I sit here and tell you the names I've gone out and beaten sparring, it's just not relevant. It would be a very different conversation. So he has to do it on Saturday night, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show him that I'm far better than he could ever imagine.
Dude, he handled that well.
He's right. He's basically right in the sense of what he's saying about what matters. He's not denying that Shavkat choked him out. People think that's a big deal. All of your favorite fighters have been choked out by their sparring partners in training. All of them.
Did Roxanne Modafferi tap out Mrs. Thomas? True or false?
She did. Although she was better to begin with. Yeah. But like it's a simple reality. And then probably, has Ian Garry tapped out Shavkat probably a time or two as well. Like there is a trade and exchange. Now, one person over the course of time if there's obviously a difference, is going to get the better over the course of time. But people forget, dude, you could do armbar drills from mount where the person has to escape, and if you tap them, they have that counts, or getting out of guillotines, or triangle defense, or passing, and There's all kinds of scenarios you can set up where, yes, somebody can put you to sleep in training. It's fucking high-level MMA fighting. Like, what is it people think happens in training? It's not just one thing. There's any number of granular situations that can lead to this. I tend to think that what Shavkat has shown gives us an indication that he probably is the better overall grappler. But to Ian Garry's point, they're different now. He's not going to let him get there. It's fighting, not training. And he's right that there are absolutely huge differences between them. You just have to decide, has enough time elapsed and has there been enough growth for any of those things to really matter anymore? You know,
I'm with you on that one. Now we come down to the prediction and the pick. Is there good value here on Ian Machado Garry at plus 285? I mean, certainly you can already, you can just jump out and answer that and say there is. But Luke, I can't find that path to victory. And that's why I'm so excited about the fight, because if he does it, given his potential for star power, this is such a breakthrough moment because you had one vision of how this would go coming in, even though it's relatively close and they're both unbeaten. I would love storyline wise, coverage wise, for this to be a breakthrough moment. But Shavkat's still that dude, man. Okay. So Luke, I think the bigger question to you, certainly from a betting standpoint, is, can Garry become the first opponent to go the distance?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. No, I think Shavkat stops him. Give me Shavkat by sub. I think he's going to stop him. I'd be curious to see what Long Island Luke thinks.
Yeah, Long Island Degenerate, what do you got over here?
I'm going safe. I took the over 1.5. I do think Shavkat by finish is probably what happens, but I was talking to Mikey pre-show, and a few people have been saying this, that like Ian Garry could totally win by decision. That is definitely on the table. I'm not putting my money there, but I know a lot of people have. So
he'd have to have a way to avoid hell. He would need a weapon or a distraction.
What is the theory for how he keeps Rakhmonov off of him for 25 minutes?
That's the question.
I think he just clinches him against the cage and holds. I think
you think he clinches a Rakhmonov?
I think that's the path, Luke. I don't know. Or he defensively, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not betting on Ian. I'm not the one to make the argument for Ian. I'm just saying I know a lot of people are on.
I think the argument is he can get into a bad spot and survive, and then win some rounds, popping him on the outside. That I can see. And also, like, let's change the scenario a little bit, BC. Imagine everything was the same except Garry had like really good takedowns, right? You'd be like, okay, that to me that would change the equation a lot. That would be like, yes, there are places you can like control, and I'm not gonna say hide, but stay out of the way of the onslaught that Rakhmonov brings. That would be a little bit different. And I'm not saying that Garry has bad wrestling. That's really not my point. But does he have that kind of wrestling? I don't think that he does. So I can see a case for him, but you have to tell me what the map is.
I know. You have to tell me if he's going to win 3 of these rounds, what will be the offensive change that does it? Is it that he brings the threat of the kick and he begins to keep Shavkat at range and can outwork him there? Or, is it boxing? Is there a gear of footwork and movement that we haven't seen from Ian Garry yet?
I think one thing that I am kind of looking towards is kind of interesting at times. So here's why I don't buy that he's going to control him in the clinch. I think that it is true. Rakhmonov, I'm not going to say gets lazy in the clinch, but one thing that I saw in a few of his fights is sometimes he'll get 50-50, right? He'll get over under. And he'll kind of hang out a little bit purposefully. He's trying to get the other guy to move in some kind of direction or to sag their weight in a direction. And he doesn't try to force it. He kind of lets it happen. I kind of wonder what Garry, who had to do a lot of clinch breaking against Jeff Neal, had to do clinch breaking against Neil Magny to an extent. Well, less so, but let's say mostly against Jeff Neal. Training with Charles Oliveira, who's got a very good clinch, but more of an offensive clinch, right? I wonder if he might try and sneak in some stuff to a Rakhmonov who's kind of hanging out, and he fires a knee up the middle, and that jacks his shit up, and that could be something that really turns the tide of the fight, or maybe just the round itself. That to me is kind of an interesting little interplay. But like the notion that he's going to control Rakhmonov in the clinch, don't be fooled. You can go and look and see Rakhmonov get his back pressed up against the fence by guys like Przerich and Harris and whatnot. It is intentional because he then takes them for a ride based off of some trip or throw that he's got going on. But BC, could Garry fuck him up in the clinch with like a more traditional Thai boxing style clinch, I accept that as a real threat. Yes, I do accept that.
Prazeres looked like a muscular child against him. That was a visual difference you could see right when that fight started. Holy crap.
Yeah, he's a good grappler, but you saw what Rakhmonov did to him. Rakhmonov made that dude give up in the middle of a fight. Like, I don't want to be in this shit anymore.
Well, look, if we're going to mention that, Pantoja is certainly training with Horiguchi, who's got that history over there. Charles doesn't have history fighting this Kazakh, but does the Charles Oliveira factor? Look, Garry seems to be rubbing elbows in good circles. Is this people have brought in Henry Cejudo before, as a consult in camp and raised their game. Maybe we see Garry raise that game, Luke. Maybe this is that moment where, the MVP fight, he was too safe, but you can't be too safe against this guy on Saturday. Garry's going to have to be the lead star of this movie, Luke. Here's my
one view about Rakhmonov. I just don't think you can beat him being defensive. I don't think you can stick and move on him for 25 minutes. So you have to ask yourself you have to do some sticking and moving. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you can't do sticking and moving. You have to do a big part of that. But that alone is not going to get the job done. You got to, at some point, meet him head on. What is Garry going to do to meet him head on to win this fight? And I'm not saying he can't do it. Of course, MMA is fucking bananas. Of course he can. I'm just saying, for the people who think that Garry can win, what is your theory about how he does that? That's the part to me I'm a little bit struggling with.
All right, I'm with you. I got to go stoppage, and I've got to go Shavkat. It's just the way it is. Let's go to topic number 2. UFC 310's undercard deserves its own topic. There's a lot going on here in terms of name value, in terms of important fights in the divisions. Let's go to heavyweight here. Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov, part 2. Gane won the first time over 5 rounds in the Apex 3 years ago, but that was prime Ciryl Gane, 2 fights before fighting Francis Ngannou, who maybe had a different mojo at that time, close early, ends up winning wide late, 50-45 on 2 scorecards, 4-1 on the third. So Luke Thomas, as we enter this very important rematch, because Volkov has rebuilt himself, he's put on a lot more mass. He's leaning more into the idea of being that distance controller who can land that big counter boom. Can he change the fortunes of this fight? The odds makers at the DraftKings have Ciryl Gane minus 375, Alexander Volkov plus 295. But would you at least agree with me that their fortunes are in a much different place than they were when they met 3 years ago? Their attitude, their swagger, their recent success. It feels like it's a new season, Luke.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm actually not so sure. Maybe you can make the case for me there.
Okay, here's the deal. It's going to be hard to overcome the hand and foot speed. That was the major problem
for sure. Yes.
Fight. He's on a great run right now, delivering stoppages, but they've been against more of the slower, plodding type heavyweights. I'm not, as good as that win, his last one over Sergey Pavlovich, the decision was, he battered Pavlovich's nose with that jab. They're a lot closer in hand speed than this one. But I don't know, dude. Even with Ciryl Gane's comeback win against Sergey Spivak, which was a stoppage, and he kind of looked like a badass in delivering it, said the right things afterwards. Number one, this ain't Sergey Spivak. Is a much bigger, stronger, sturdier, and more dangerous opponent. And somebody who, despite that obvious gap in speed that he has, can box a little bit, as a kickboxer, can control distance, is a smart fighter, Volkov. I don't think Ciryl Gane's the same fighter that he was before that streak of 3 fights in which he lost to Ngannou, survived a war to knock out Tuivasa, and then badly lost to John Jones. Even with the Spivak win, it's just there's a disconnect. The mojo's not there anymore. And Luke, I want to play a video. You can tell me if this is unfair, but this is UFC fighter Max Payne Griffin on a podcast, maybe even his own, talking about what he feels like Ciryl Gane lacks. And I wonder if I can make this case to you and if you think this is a fair statement.
I personally just don't like Ciryl Gane. I think he's real soft. He's like a soft Frenchie, I just don't like Ciryl Gane. He hits a lot in the back of the head. He has so many knockouts where he hits the guy in the back of the head.
Nah, Bonga mean, man. This guy's built like the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, but he's soft, man. He's not mean. I wish he was meaner. He's not mean. And I feel like to be good and to like, you gotta be mean, man. And I feel like he's too like, doesn't try to hurt the guy. I feel like he doesn't have like bad intentions. He's just kind of like playing in there.
Okay, Luke, some of that's unfair, but
yeah, some of that is just like 1980s movie villain. We don't like the Frenchie, nonsense.
Yeah. But here's the thing that's holding me back. Part of that is that lack of killer instinct. Part of it is when his A game is in full control. Yes, that fighter that he was on the build toward that interim title win against Derek Lewis was a next level heavyweight in some regards. But we saw clearly once he hit that ceiling of where his flaws are. Now, I'm not necessarily saying Volkov's the perfect fighter to fill in the gap on those flaws, but I feel like Volkov is due, man. He is due for a moment. He's had 3 separate times before where he's gotten to this point where he's basically 1 win away from a title shot. We know that heavyweight's never overly deep where you can put a few together and look good, and he's come up empty in those fights. I've been watching him slowly. I thought the breakthrough moment was going to be in the past, and you know, whether it was the Tom Aspinall fight or what have you, he came up empty in a big way. But he's really rebuilt himself physically. He's solid. I think he's fighting smarter. And this being a 3-round fight and not a 5-round, if Gon's going to come in with the, oh, look what I just did to Spivak, I know I need to be more of a finisher. I know I need to press on the gas more. I'm just saying this might be the wrong opponent at the wrong time. He may run into something because I think there's something just still kind of off identity-wise about Cyril Gane to find that mojo again, to wire himself directly. Again, look great against Spivak, but I think there are levels to this. This might come down more, Luke, to whether you believe Volkov is on the level to deliver what I'm trying to predict he might on Saturday.
I think the issue has been that Gane has been able to train half-assed, barely at all, and has been able to, like, you know, putz around, and he's such a better athlete. I agree with Griffin in the sense that, like, he doesn't fight mean. That is absolutely true. He does not fight mean. Now, whether you need to do that to win is somewhat more debatable. I mean, Gane, I think, has gone further than Max Griffin, respectively, although Gane fights in an easier division. But that's kind of the point. Like, Gane has been able to realize, I'm a better athlete than these guys. I can kind of do all this half-assed. I can point fight, and touch and go. Tuivasa fight notwithstanding, but, you know, in general, and I can just win. And that's what it's been. And then he had the fight against Francis, and he made a really bad, like a series of just really bad calls, but it was still a reasonably, you know, tough fight. And then he got run over by Jones because he fought like absolute shit. And it showed, yeah, there's a bunch of these guys you can beat without doing anything. But there's going to be some guys that, you know, this is clearly going to be not enough. It's either good enough or the bottom totally drops out, and it dropped out against him. And this is really, to me, it's like the part that's interesting is that Volkov is coming off the Pavlovich win, and Gane is still, yeah, he beat Spivak, but he's still dealing with the fact that his stock has collapsed, that like the Jones fight ruined how people perceived him. And so there's a real great opportunity here, even with the stylistic advantages. Like, BC, here's the thing, right? Could he go back to that hand and foot speed, jab, circle, get out of the way, you know, make Volkov miss in the way that he did before? Absolutely. And of course, that will be a part of it no matter what. But the real test here is, do you have anything else? Do you have anything else to show us? A certain intention, a development? Show us exactly what this means to you. And if he goes out there and beats him the same way again, dude, Gane's going to beat a lot of guys. Just, you know, a little bit of work, a lot of athleticism. This is what it's going to be. But does he have another gear, meanness, something else? That's what this fight to me is ultimately about.
Can I level with you? We try not to call fighters donks, but we've been pointing it out more. There's been parts of our speech and lexicon that we're allowing into the fight game where we may have been liberal in the past. I mean, look, I got Dick Down off twice on the other show, but Gane's a bit of a donk. So I love everything you just said right there. And I'm almost sort of leaning into, I think he's going to come out looking to fill in that gap of what else you got and think to himself, all right, I can light this guy up. I proved that the first fight. Those advantages are there. Only I don't think Gane is in that same space that he was mentally when he was rising then, and the confidence he had. If he overcompensates for that confidence, if he says, look, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to make a statement, I'm going to put him on him. And if he hangs around like he did against Tuivasa too much on the street corner where they let their hands go, you could get caught here. And Volkov has stubborn finishing power with all 4 limbs. Dude, this guy is, I mean, look, he's close. He's basically on that borderline, meaning there's that small group of elite heavyweights that you're like, yes, I could see him as champion. Volkov is either the worst in that group or the best of the second tier guys. What is it, Luke?
I think he's probably the best of the second tier guys. This fight could, he wins here, and that's a different conversation. I'm just telling you where I'm at right now. I just feel like I have to admit I was wrong about how far he could go. I never thought he would even become second tier. So I have to admit, my judgment about him was probably a little bit too harsh to begin with. And that win over Pavlovich was fantastic. But this is a different guy for very different reasons. And this is, how do you overcome somebody with very good timing and much better athleticism than you have to really give us something special here. So if he can do that, I think we changes the conversation. But up to this point, BC, there's definitely enough to say he's at the top of the second tier, but not enough to say he's in the first tier, I think.
All right, Long Island Luke, if I'm telling you that Cyril Gane might be a donk, he might be able to make the big mistake that can bring the opening. Plus 295 on Volkov. You can't hate that. You cannot hate that right now.
You can't hate that. My cat's climbing on my fucking chair behind me.
Yeah,
fucking guys with cats in their buttholes, man.
Dude, you can only trust guys with cats, Luke. Yeah, people know that.
Well, I had a cat and he died, so thanks. Oh, there's
I don't
that
trust
butthole.
you at all.
There's that big old butthole.
There is value on Volkov. He's gone 5-1 since their first fight. His only loss came to Aspinall in that span. I mean, maybe he's on a bit of a resurgence, dude. He looked good against Pavlovich. They were former training partners, though. I don't know if that had something to do with it.
Fair.
But yeah, I don't know. I see value.
What is the name of your cat?
Ruby. It's a she.
Ruby.
Yeah.
It's a terrible name for a cat.
Oh, come on. That's fine. That's fine, Luke. That's fine. Luke, I'm going to take it. It's going to, okay. But if I don't want to lean on puncher's chance, knockout or nothing, are we missing an opening for Volkov to trip takedown Gane, lay on him for 3.5 minutes and tire him out a little bit?
I don't think so. Again, I don't know. Obviously, we'll have to see, but I just I don't think so. I don't think that's quite what we're up against here.
Okay. All right. There you go. By decision, Cyril Gane? That's where you're.
Yeah. I think so. I do think.
All right.
That.
Let's move on. Let's get into the wild and wacky 2 featherweight fights we have on this pay-per-view card. We'll get to Aljamain Sterling in a fight that could produce the next featherweight title contender, but is absolutely buried. But Bryce Mitchell is going to get a big showcase opportunity here against a Kron Gracie who hasn't won since 2019. Despite that recent fight, hasn't been active at all in many years. And 2 fights ago, he got criticized for letting his hands go like a wild man against Cub Swanson. And then 1 fight ago, he gets completely criticized for being jiu-jitsu only to a laughable level. So Luke, Bryce Mitchell, a -850 betting favorite against the +575 Gracie. I'm admittedly a Gracie mark for Kron. He's weird and wild and wacky, and I just can't. It's reality TV to me. But this is on a pay-per-view card. Does he belong in this spot against Bryce Mitchell?
No.
And is this anything more than Mitchell getting well on a pay-per-view against a Gracie? Right? Like it looks fine on paper, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean it's a great fight to make. It belongs on the prelims, but it's a fun fight. Bryce Mitchell 30, Kron Gracie 36. That alone to me is a bit of a red flag, especially given Kron's, I mean, no development, and time off, and kind of seems like I mean, dude, he made comments being like, I'm ready to sort of get back to my life when this is over. I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's not the kind. I mean, dude, if you're gonna be involved in the fist fighting business, that is red flag city. You know what I mean? Like, what would be the source of confidence? Could Bryce get overconfident and make a mistake, and then Kron could snatch him up? Of course, yes. Pure jiu-jitsu, Kron is infinitely better than Bryce Mitchell. There's really no debate about that. So these are things you couldn't dismiss. But the time off, the lack of development, Bryce can strike a little bit on the feet. Like, the fact that Bryce will engage with him on the floor absolutely gives Kron a shot. But this would be by far Kron's best win, and it would happen under the most unusual circumstances.
This
if
is
it
like
were to
pride
happen.
matchmaking. We're almost at that level with Kron.
Yes.
Like, I'm into it because I like the Kron experience, but it's, imagine if you're Aljo and you're like, I lost a main card pay-per-view spot to Kron Gracie. Let's hear from Bryce Mitchell, Luke, who has a lot of beliefs that you don't agree with. I wonder if you agree with this one.
What's your issue with seatbelts?
Seatbelts, I think it's just like you get to choose if you want to wear a seatbelt. The government doesn't, they don't wipe my ass for me, and they shouldn't be able to tell me if I want to wear a seatbelt. I personally don't like them because I think, what if you got to jump out of the car and roll, duck and roll, and nobody ever thinks about that. So I don't personally wear a seatbelt, but I grew up, my mom never wore one. I just don't believe in them, and it's not up to the government to decide if I should wear a seatbelt or not. So that's just my view on it, and that's why I don't wear them. But maybe, I strap my baby in, I strap Tucker in, but I just don't like wearing them. I like the maneuverability.
Luke, don't tread on him. Don't you dare, okay? I mean, good God. I love that guy. He says some wacky shit, man, right?
I mean, the reality is the reason why the government does it is because, one, it's in your interest. It meaningfully reduces the amount of traffic-related fatalities or even maimings and injuries. But more to the part of it, it's like, oh, the government can't tell you that. Well, sort of they can, because when this is not allowed and then people have to get medically treated for this, and it causes overtime and pay. You have to deal with all the folks on the highway who have to deal with the traffic accidents and everything else. These costs get put back onto eventually the American taxpayer or insurance holders or whatever. And so everyone else has to pick up the tab for this. So like, they actually do have a meaningful case to say that they have a right to make you, or they use the force of law to compel you to do it. It's a very, very silly fuck. I mean, dude, it's almost like, I just don't believe, swimming is protects you from drowning or some shit. Like, I don't even. It's like, I like. And you know what? I really want to test it too. Like, if you ever got staph infections, like, do you believe in antibiotics? Like, what is it that you do believe that is a safety precaution in the modern world? Like, do you believe
condoms?
Condoms.
Yeah, how much condoms used to cost back in the day?
I mean, get out of here. But like, child safety locks on, or child safety tops on aspirin bottles. Is that a, you know what I mean? Like, just any notion of improvement in the modern world, he seems to think is some scam.
Well, he lived in a trailer. He would eat coffee grounds. The guy's a wild trip.
Dude, I knew people who I was in the Marine Corps with guys who lived in trailers we all ate coffee grounds in the fields. Like, I've done all this shit. I mean, or not the trailer part, but the coffee grounds part. Certainly have done it, been around people like that. They still wore fucking seatbelts, bro.
All right. I mean, this is you mentioned the Flat Earth title would be at stake. Mitchell's a Dub T superhero in some ways, Luke. He's ridiculous, but he's also hilarious.
No,
Can I ask you?
Am your Dub T hero.
There it is. Wow, whoomp. There it is. Luke, could Aljo have been on the main card if we just had Bryce Mitchell fight Nate Landwehr? That would have been like a decent idea, right?
Oh. Well, then who does Duho Choi fight?
He fights Crone on the undercard.
Crone's getting Crone's getting absolutely fricasseed against Duho Choi.
Long Island, if you want to jump in, if you want, you're not taking the plus 575 on Crone, right?
No, I'm not. I have Bryce Mitchell in a parlay. That's the only value I can find on this fight.
Do you wear seatbelts?
Of course.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I bet you they don't down under. Let's hear from Luke Thomas on the next one. Also at featherweight, Nate Landwehr. This fight has so much action potential, and the odds let you know it could be a great one. He's minus 135, Nate the Train in the UFC, against the plus 114 Korean Superboy Duho Choi. Luke, what's not to love? But I want to put another question on top of that. Do you think Duho Choi, who like retired when he had that brain bleed scare, like, did I make that part up, or did that really happen?
I know he had military service. I don't know about the brain.
Maybe I'm confusing him. Anyway, he was away for a while. He's back, Luke. Is he back to make a run? Like, this is a big fight for him in some ways, but
no.
He's just an entertainment spectacle.
He's an entertainment spectacle. He's damaged goods. We should just be honest about that. He's damaged goods. And I hate to say that because, no. I know. People think when I say that, like, I'm trying to like disrespect what he's done. I'm doing the opposite. I'm saying he gave so much that you have to recognize that's not there anymore, because it cannot be. The human body has a finite capacity for for damage over the course of time anyway. And he has drained that bank account to a pretty significant degree. There's just not much left. That being said, there's enough left to make this fight very entertaining, very fun. And I think he's got a real, I mean, dude, this is you mentioned the odds. This is pretty close to a pick 'em. I mean, both guys can win. I think Landwehr probably has a little bit more durability left, and that might be just what he needs. But obviously, Doo Ho Choi's got sick firepower, man. Make no mistake about it.
No doubt about it. And by the way, breaking news, Alexandre Pantoja, according to Long Island Luke, has made weight. The champ 124.5 for Saturday's main event. So, Luke, regarding Doo Ho, regarding the Korean Superboy, if you're wondering if he's going to bang, he was more or less asked that at Media Day this week. Spoiler alert, he's going to bang.
Do you like that? Is it something that you ever wish you had a break from?
So for my last two fights, I didn't really have the opportunity to show a banger fight to the fans. So, you know, I'm going to grab this opportunity against Nate Landwehr, and I'm going to show a slugfest to the fans.
Hell yeah. Okay, I mean, not like there was doubt, but like, hell yeah, right?
They booked this fight for a reason. Excellent matchmaking. You know exactly what you're going to get. You don't know how long you're going to get it, but you're going to get it. For sure, you're going to get it.
I'm going big because, you know, Korean Superboy along with French sensation Tom Duquesnoy both fooled me into believing they were really coming on back in the day, Luke. So I'm going to believe that Choi can get one here and make a little bit of a move, get some movement going at least. All right.
Let's see.
Do you have any interest level in the preliminary featured bout, the final fight on regular TV, when Dominic Reyes takes on Anthony Smith and a pair of aging light heavyweights? Dom Reyes is a minus 345 favorite, the plus 275 for the veteran Lionheart. Outside of like cheering Dom Reyes to come back from this funk, and his last knockout win was such a feel-good moment, what else we got going on in this fight, Luke?
I mean, Anthony Smith got up there this week and said he had, and obviously I feel terrible for him. They had a terrible tragedy, losing a loved one, essentially, and that he doesn't even give a fuck about winning. And I'm like, yep, that's a red flag. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, I feel terrible for the guy. Like, obviously, these are horrible circumstances, and you know, you kind of have to just get through it as best you can. And if your job is prize fighting, you know, if a family member of ours, you know, BC, if God forbid, if something happened to one of your family members, like CBS would give you some time off to go and you wouldn't have to work. But like, he doesn't get that exactly, and not in the same way. And so, you know, you just have to kind of live with it. But it doesn't make for great circumstances to prize fight. It makes it for very, very difficult. And so Reyes, I mean, I understand the questions in both directions. I think Smith, you know, Smith's been doing the commentary thing for a long time. He's been a friend of this program. I hold him in very high esteem, but I think he's probably pretty close to the end. This might usher it in. We'll see.
Yeah, he's lost 4 of his last 6, a veteran of so many professional fights. And he's, you know, had these mini flashes of mini reinventions a few times. He's still a tough sort of gatekeeper for the risers that are coming up. But hey, if Dom Reyes puts together 2 wins here, I wouldn't hate it, Luke, because you do want to see that guy have a proper closing. I can't believe we're actually talking about like a proper closing to his career, but like everything that has happened since Blachowicz kicked him in the side, Luke, has been bad, it seems.
You know, he's had a long, brutal career. He's had a very good career. He fought for a world title. He could have taken the easy way out and taken it, and you know, decided not to. And we've talked about that on the show.
No, I'm talking about Dom Reyes, Luke.
Oh, Tom Reyes, I'm so sorry, BC. I apologize. Another case where a guy we thought was headed for great things, the only guy I've ever thought who beat John Jones. That's the only guy. And then it all just fell apart. Like, badly it fell apart. It seemed like irredeemably fell apart. But he's got a shot here to get another win. I don't know if it proves a whole lot given where Anthony Smith is at this point. But I don't want to take away from him. A win is a win in the UFC, and it's a good thing. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Dom Reyes, I'm sorry, 34 years old. So we'll see what he can do with this fight if he gets the win. But let's focus on the third best fight on the card. It comes in that featherweight division. And Aljamain Sterling, coming off of the debut at 145, when he controlled and kind of dominated, but it wasn't exciting against Calvin Kattar, is going to welcome unbeaten Movsar Evloev, who is coming in here as the minus 278 betting favorite against the plus 225 Aljo. Aljo believes this is the fight. If he wins, he will be fighting Ilia Topuria, in his opinion, next if it goes down. For Evloev, who's unbeaten, this would be the breakthrough win that could launch him to the title level himself. So, Luke Thomas, what do we got here stylistically between two great grapplers? Is it going to be one of the things where we, have some sequences and they trade it on the ground? Or could this become one of those grapplers' delight where they don't go to the ground at all? And then Colby and Kamaru are giving us a clinic of all action. Okay, maybe not with Aljo here, but what are your expectations in this very important fight?
Aljo's going to be able to stick and move here like he always does. He's very, very crafty with that. Even in the second fight against Jan, he had great success at that. To me, this fight really comes down to how Movsar approaches it. Does he get the takedown on top? Can he hold it? Can he do anything with it? We saw Diego Lopez was able to threaten from guard a couple of times when they fought as well. And that was a very, very sort of new to the UFC kind of scenario, Diego Lopez. I think if Aljo can stick and move and then on the offensive grappling side, find a way to take the bull by the horn, so to speak, set the terms, take the back, Movsar is in trouble here. Aljamain has, Movsar's undefeated. Aljamain's not, but Aljamain was a very good bantamweight champion and looked good against Calvin Kattar. Is it enough against Movsar this late into his career? I don't know, but I do think it's an interesting matchup. Movsar, the better pure wrestler of the two, the better guy to get top control. Aljo, the better submission guy by a million miles, the better stick and move guy by a million miles, and certainly one of the best back attackers in the entire sport. How that plays out is going to be really... People talk about this fight's going to suck. Is it going to be fucking Nate Landwehr versus Doo Ho Choi? Yeah, it's not going to be that. I mean, not many things can be, and it's not going to be that. But acting like if you care about MMA that this is deeply boring and two guys just going to be laying on each other, get the fuck out of here. Totally wrong.
Now, Luke, I had Aljo on the BCX, the Brian Campbell Experience yesterday, and he's was really honest, and he knows where he's at 35. He knows with the star level that he wants big fights. He mentioned would love to fight Volkanovski if he gets the chance. But what do you make of what he said ultimately where guarantee he thinks he gets a win here? He thinks that Volk versus Topuria might not happen next after originally thought. And he thinks this win packaged with Kattar and his name puts him above Diego Lopez, since he says Lopez lost to Evloev. So that would be the thing that cancels it out. You're making any MMA math with that?
Did you have the clip? Is there a clip of this?
No, I have a different clip, but I did want to ask you whether you felt like this has those stakes, or is he talking it into existence?
Yeah, he's talking into existence. That is not in any way. No fucking chance. Now, the counter is if he goes in there and just whoops. You know how he whooped Corey Sandhagen quickly? You do that to Movsar, and that's a little bit of a different conversation. But if it's a nip and tuck fight, even if it's a good one for 3 rounds, no. Forget it.
You do have to bring up if they've buried him, whether it's they're burying it because of him or because of Evloev or both, or the style matchup, you're then going to take that guy and put him in a pay-per-view main event. I don't know. I mean, he's going to be close. If he gets a big win here, he's certainly going to be close.
He's close in the rankings. He's not close promotionally. That's not true.
Only
Dude, you've got Volkanovski waiting on a title shot. You got Diego Lopez waiting on a title shot. You're at best third, which means you've got other work to do. And that assumes even that, you got halfway respectable win. If it's a split decision, no fucking way. No chance.
All right. Well, Luke, you would admit he's getting dick down though, right? In the placement.
I mean, I've seen what dick down looks like on Brazzers, and it looks real different. You know what I'm saying?
Well, some people have the balls to ask him about that directly, like I did on the BCX.
Oh, God.
But the storyline has been about the placement of the fight in those mid prelims. Dude, I feel like you got dick down in this equation. What gives, Aljo?
I don't know. That's a question for Dana. Hopefully there's more people that's going to be able to watch, being that it's free. And I guess glass half full, we get to finish earlier. I get to go drink some Funk Harbor and celebrate with the family. Sure. All my friends that are flying out here from New York coming to watch. So that's cool. I think we're going to be fighting somewhere around 5:30 Vegas time. So it'll be a lot of time to kind of come home, shower, put the party shoes on, the dancing shoes, and get ready to go.
I mean, is it a style thing at the end of the day, or is it some Aljo's not on, you're on the naughty list. What is it at the end of the day?
I know Mozart said this, but it might be punishment because of him, to be honest. So it's I don't know. I really don't know. We were on the main card for Salt Lake City, and then we got pushed back because of my injury, and then somehow we ended up on the prelims. But it is what it is. I mean, we get paid the same, so nothing really changes. Hopefully there are a lot more people that get to tune in, and we get to fire people up for the main card.
What do you make of all this, Luke?
Not much. Not much, yeah.
All right. I mean, I was just happy to get that term over again. Yes, right?
I can't believe he didn't say anything about it. I was like waiting for him to reply. Nope.
He just accepted it as regular, as part of it. All right, let's talk about who wins here, Luke. Does he get the job done, and why is he plus 225 after that showing against Cater?
Because Movsar is different. I'm not trying to be like, he's built different. I hate that term, but I genuinely mean he is a different type of challenge that is uniquely different. I don't think Movsar is unbeatable, but BC, please don't get mad at me for saying this, but I'm trying to be honest. Topuria to me has like what you would need to beat a guy like that. Now, Movsar is a better wrestler, I think, than him, but I think Topuria could challenge for it and then light him up on the feet while it happens. You have to ask yourself, could Aljo do something like that? Okay, he can stick and move. That's going to be valuable. Can he offensively put Movsar on his back? Probably for a little bit, but not an extended period. But can he use that to take the back? Probably also, but that part to me, I don't quite know. Usually, Aljamain's going to be the one going for the takedown, for the back exposure, and I think he will here too. But I'm how he does that, BC, I guess, is a little bit of a mystery to me. Like, do I think he can do it? Of course. But what particular tactical approach is he going to take? That one I remain somewhat I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go. It kind of feels like Movsar has the edge in terms of pure physical dominance in wrestling, and that might be enough. But I guess we'll see.
What do you make of Aljo also telling me that he wants to fight Topuria, but he said, look, I'm not delusional about it. Win or lose, that's a rough night for me. He basically said it could go very, very, very bad, and he's fully aware of it.
He's a experienced, credentialed, smart fighter. I think anybody fighting Ilya has to know. I mean, if it's Islam at 55, maybe it's a little bit different. But even then, if you're at 45 in particular, if you're going to fight Topuria, the guy just polished off Volk and Max Holloway in the same year. Even if you beat the guy, it's going to be tough. I respect that he has some self-awareness about that.
Yeah, I thought it was very refreshing actually to hear all of that. He had a lot of good stuff to say about that, his relationship with Merab, and so much more if you care. Do I care to take a flyer on him though? Let's hear from Nocita, because you're a Long Island guy, Luke Nocita, where Aljo, Ray Longo, isn't Aljo working with Dean Thomas now though on a regular basis?
Is he?
Either way, are you taking him or not?
Of course I'm taking him. I'm taking the Long Island parlay, Weidman and Aljo, and I'm taking the New York parlay. You throw Randy Brown in there as well.
I don't accept that as a parlay. I mean, come on.
All right, well, that's the New York parlay. But yeah, dude, I also think Aljo with the spread, by the way, on DraftKings, plus 3.5 at minus 145. I think that's a really good bet as well. He could win one round on every judge's scorecard, right?
So you're saying this goes the distance and defeat even if he loses?
Yeah, I think if Loyev by decision is probably most likely outcome, Aljo could possibly steal it.
That's where I'm at. Yeah. I think it's a good call. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Luke, anything else on this card as we go to the next topic here? I mean, you do have Vicente Luque against Garimbo. You've got that Randy Brown-Brian battle fight that's going to be a war. Chiesa's on there. Clay Guida, Chase Hooper. There's some weird things that I don't hate. Chris Weidman. Good Lord.
Dude, well, the Chris Weidman fight is just terrible. I mean, let's be honest about that.
It's nubs, as you would say. Yeah.
It's nubs as shit. I mean, please stop fighting. But the Kennedy and Zechkiu and Lucas Brzeski fight, or however you say his name, I don't care about that. But literally every other one is good. Clay Guida has a rematch with Chase Hooper. They had a grappling match. It's a rematch from that.
Breaking news. Brian Battle missed weight, 175 pounds for his welterweight bout.
against Randy Brown. I was going to say that's a fun fight for as long as it lasts, but now if I'm Randy Brown, I got some questions I might start asking myself. But that one, as you mentioned, Chiesa and Griffin, another fun fight. By the way, Josh Van versus Cody Durden. I know Van kind of had the loss that set him back a little bit, but I still think this is a hell of a fun fight. He's got a bright future. Dude, the entire card has something worth value, with the exception of 2 fights in my view.
I didn't even realize Griffin was on this card. We played the footage of him earlier talking about
good prep, BC.
The Frenchie. I'm like, well, look, dude, there's a lot of names buried on here.
No, it's
really
true. I'm teasing. Good
stuff over there. UFC 310 this Saturday. Hey, Luke, topic number 3. Let's get into UFC 311, baby. Yeah, change a lot and then some. But we've always been down about great cards, and Dana White upgraded this one from the rumors, from the reports we'd heard, in a big way. And since this graphic was made that we're going to go throw to here, they've also added Money Moicano against Dariush, among others. But Luke, if it looks like this, January 18th, Intuit Dome, Inglewood, California, UFC 311, what letter grade are you putting on here? And it better be a big one.
Yeah, it's an A. This is an A. You've got the pound for pound number 1 guy in the sport with the most deserving contender. You have the most exciting, arguably, division in the sport at bantamweight, with its champion taking on the most deserving contender presently. You could make an argument for Jan, but I think that, getting Umar another shot is important. You have something of a number 1-ish contender fight, but at bare minimum a grudge match between Prochazka and Hill. Almeida Spivak, one of the better fights you can make at heavyweight. Holland versus DeRitter is just going to be absolute madness for as long as it lasts. Talbot is a rising contender taking on an aging veteran like Barcelos, but a fun fight just the same. Walker versus Guskov. I mean, it's going to be banana peel slipping left and right. Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. A very good fight between, guys who it's going to be hard to give them a title shot anytime soon, but very credentialed, very talented. Carol Hosel versus Eileen Perez. Might be some twerking going on. Rinya Nakamura, one of the top prospects in the sport, taking on Muin Gafarov, a fun fight. And then the rest of them, I don't really care so much about, but you've got already so much good stuff. It's an A. That's an A.
Dude,
that's a solid A.
It's almost an A+. You would just need, I guess, more star power to make it an A+, but
maybe some other kind of really cool grudge match. But I mean, fight cards don't come much better. Let's just put it that way. They don't come much better.
Hill Prochazka would have been more than fine as a co-main event of this pay-per-view, but they're going to give us Merab versus Umar as well, which was the big part of Dana's reveal before Ramadan. It's going to happen. No more arguing. Is Merab ducking him? So this just puts it up there. So if we're used to the modern UFC schedule in 2024, it seems that October Abu Dhabi card, or that fall one, is a major now. MSG even International Fight Week, you don't always get that major feel with the matchmaking. Luke, this feels like a major. Is this because of the new dome in LA? Is it because of hopeful TKO government contracts in California? What is this right here?
I don't know if it portends like a new major, but like the Intuit Dome, for folks who don't follow the Clippers, this is the brainchild of Steve Ballmer, former Microsoft, or even is he still at Microsoft? I can't even keep it straight anymore. But either way, a Microsoft Titan, and he built this dome. And we had these conversations, BC, with the Sphere about is it the right venue for a fight? And there was a lot that people liked, a lot that they didn't. But is it the best fight for a best venue for a fight? I don't know if it's that. But the Intuit Dome is designed to be fan friendly in every way, both in terms of sight lines, as well as they put more vendors, they put more bathrooms, all the there's more Wi-Fi. The chairs all have, you can charge your shit. There's just all kinds of stuff that they've done. Now, that's different than what you're asking. I'm simply saying, that venue plus this card is I don't know what they're going to charge for tickets, but it's going to be great. So to me, I don't know if it portends, hey, this is a new flag we're planting in the calendar. I just think the stars kind of aligned on this one, and it's, the tickets might be insane, but
premier event. And I hope even if it is directly tied to wanting to blow that arena out, because it's got all those technological capabilities and it's probably going to be shown off, not obviously on the level with the Sphere, but I'm sure it's part of it. Even if that's the fact, whatever. This is a great ass fight card. So Luke, let's show this Uncle Habib post. Nurmagomedov will now be cornering his brother, more or less, Islam in the main event, his cousin Umar in the co-main, and a nice little response there about how busy he'll be from Khabib. Let me read you now the early odds from DraftKings on the top 3 fights. Makhachev -265, Sarukian +215. Luke, that is awesome. I think it's right. And how much do you believe the warpath Sarukian has been on, mixed with Islam getting into the war late with Dustin, does that kind of like make this rematch even closer heading into this?
The odds speak to how close it is. I still think the same reasons why Arman fell short the first time are the same hurdles he's going to have to overcome here, which is that Islam can match a lot of what he does in the wrestling, can stifle it, and that Sarukian has a problem with anybody who's wiggly and hard to hold down. He has trouble with ground and pound. He has no real way to, or not no real way. He has struggled with that. Islam is that guy. At least we think he's that guy. He was that guy the first time they fought, but that was almost 6 years ago. So that, by the time they fight anyway. So I feel like Sarukian is the number 1 contender because of what he's done. But has he shown to me, BC, definitive proof that he's a very different guy from the guy he fought the first time? Well, in some senses, yes. But in terms of what he needs to beat Makhachev, I still remain somewhat skeptical about that.
For sure. But I think if he's going to bridge that gap, it's probably going to be with the weapons he has. And he's had a nice track record leading up to this of late, showing you that he might be even more explosive than we thought. Right? Like, this is...
We'll see. We'll see. I love the guy.
I'm not saying that as a reason to favor him.
Makhachev, dude, here's the thing. He's not just fighting for the welterweight. Excuse me. He's not just fighting for the lightweight title. He's fighting the number 1 guy in the fucking sport.
Hell yeah.
Like,
he has the moxie, Armenian, I don't give a F about who you are, though, that we need for a contender to make this fight so sexy. It's going to be great. It's going to be great, Luke.
It's going to be fair. This is the fight to make for the number 1 guy in the sport right now, and I have not a shred of a complaint.
Manuk Akopian, Luke, of the LA Times and boxing scene, among other places. I ran into him in LA, and he told me that Edmund Head Movement is in the corner of Arman as one of the second assistants.
Me.
No, not as the lead guy, but as he's been working with him this camp. So
by the way, Kai Asakura making weight 124.5. There you go.
All right, there we go. We're in. No worries there. Luke, that co-main event at UFC 311, Merab +164, the underdog against the -198 Umar. Dude, this is a hardcore fan's wet dream, this fight. Let's go.
This is also the right fight to make. Now, I'm surprised that Merab is taking it on such short notice, but nevertheless, this is the guy. You could make a case for Jan, and I know he was already champion, but this is a fresh rotation. And if we're going to go fresh rotations, this is the guy you have to go with. And dude, Umar, I think he's a tough matchup for Merab. Merab's also a tough matchup for anybody else. It's not like I think he's a lamb being led to slaughter. I don't mean it that way, but in the sense of, who's got exactly the right kind of skills, we think, to give exactly what Merab does some problems, and Umar's got him. And dude, just think about this, man. Khabib is since retired from the sport. Islam is the number 1 pound-for-pound guy in the sport. His cousin Umar might be a new UFC champion. We already know what Usman Nurmagomedov is
Usman
up to.
has said he's waiting for Islam to move up, and then he's going to come over and take the lightweight belt.
Yeah, I mean, dude, these fucking guys are the kings of MMA. This is the royal family of MMA. It used to be the Gracies. Now it's the Nurmagomedovs. And I know, Makhachev is, related to them, obviously, in a sense. But that team, that family, they are special.
This would be a showcase of that. Wow. It's going to be a great night of fights. And then don't forget about that rematch between former light. Is this a rematch, Luke? Yeah, right? Prochazka versus Hill. I feel like they've all fought each other 2 times. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if my
or
brain
is this a fresh one? Either way,
this is a fresh one.
It's a veritable pick'em. Prochazka -105, Hill -115. Did we figure out if they fought before? Because I can't wait.
They haven't fought. This is a fresh one.
All right, Luke, this is great. 2 former champions, slugfest. And I want to get your reaction to what Hill was a part of yesterday as he walked into the same gym as Poatan. And it looked like they were going to have a rematch. We don't have sound at this moment, but he basically was talking shit. You want to fight? And then we eventually see Poatan throw a pair of gloves at him and say, let's do it right now. and then cooler heads prevailed. There's the Poaton's coach that got in the way eventually. Luke, we've said that Jamal's been making some positive changes in the trash talk game, even though he's largely insufferable and irritating. He's had some wins lately. Is this a win or a big L?
In the short run, it's definitely a big L. Like, he's getting absolutely murdered for it on social media. So you have to just, recognize that. I will say this though, BC, if he beats Prochazka, tell me you're not excited about Poatan Hill too. Tell me, lie to me and tell me if he beats, again, that's a big if. It's a big if. Assuming that happens, I can't wait to see that rematch. Get out of here.
Yeah, I'm loving what's going on at light heavyweight. I'm loving what Hill brings potentially to these big fights. He is largely unsufferable though, but I like when he gets a few wins mixed in between. Let's go over to topic number 4. People that have not been winning lately are the Bellator fighters who cannot get a date in this PFLator universe. We mentioned and showed on Monday's show a lot of the chatter and the talk. Well, Patchy Mix just did what Patricio Pitbull did before him, and that's go onto social media and say publicly, if you're not going to give me a fight, you're not going to give me what I want, cut me. Here's Patchy Mix saying, my manager told me to hold off, but haven't heard anything from PFL or Don Davis. If you are not going to have me fight, then please release me from the contract. This is not what I want. But if I'm not important to the company being a multi-time champ, then let me go respectfully. Luke, I don't know what you could say in response to that other than let him play. I mean, what are we doing here? He's one of the best fighters in the world.
He's 31. This is the time he needs to be fighting the most. He's 31, and not 31 at heavyweight, not 31 at 205. He's 31 at 135. Now, I think eventually he's probably going to get up to 145, but it doesn't change the equation very much at all. This is the time he needs to be active. He fought 2 times in 2022. He fought 2 times in 2023. Fair enough. But he fought 1 time this year in May, and that was it. Meanwhile, the PFL had how many cards over the course of the year, and they couldn't find a place for him. And I know he's got to be in the Bellator series. Doesn't matter. You got to find a way to get that guy involved however you possibly can. He is 1,000,000,000% right. It's not merely that he's at the end of his run and he can't get a fight and he just, doesn't know if he wants to come back. He is smack in the middle of the best he'll ever be. And he fought 1 freaking time this year. How much this is terrible PR for PFL. This is terrible for the career of Patchy Mix. He's not the only one. If you cannot use this guy, you must let him go. It is very, very... He's not even saying, I want to go. He's saying, give me fights or let me go. Just give him fights. Give him fights.
This Bellator shit. Like, this is the guy you would take. And even if you're sticking to the regular season tournament format, which we both agree we wouldn't want full time for every division. But if you were, you would announce we have one of the best fighters in the world at this weight class. And we've got this tournament where he's going to have to prove it again. Like, this would be one of the asset chess pieces that you push forward. Yet so many of these guys are getting buried. So Patricio Pitbull did an interview with MMA Fighting. We've got a quote or two from it. We can put the full screen, but he's basically saying the same thing of let me go. He says, they're losing their rhythm as fighters. It's bad for me as a champion. I need to stay active. I'm not getting any younger. I spoke with my managers, and since my contract is not that long, it's close to the end. I need to work. Let me leave. And then he would add, Luke, that I have to fight in the UFC. I have to face those guys. I see myself doing a good job there. I don't see anything special there. I can fight anyone, even the champion, Ilya. He has some small holes I can take advantage of. He would go on to say that his lightweight history makes him a great candidate to fight Chandler. And then he would dunk on Don Davis on the way out by saying, Davis said early in the merge that it would not happen, that the Bellator fighters would not be kind of left out and not allowed to fight because they're making more money, but it happened. We know the organization has valued semi-retired fighters and internet celebrities more than actual fighters that put on a show, end quote. Those are some fighting words from Pitbull, but let that guy fight. It's all he wants. I mean, dude, he's basically saying it. Yeah, use him or you're killing him from going and fulfilling his dreams over there in the UFC.
BC, this is the problem with having all of these little brands that have their own little needs, their own broadcast schedule, their own little universes. Rather than just looking at the talent pool they have and matching it up and doing events, they have to partition everything. And so they can't really make any of it deliver on its promise other than the tournament one, which in part was Saudi funded. They're too convoluted, too many brands, too many cooks in the kitchen. Simplify the product, make the brand exciting, and put your best guys at the top of cards. How fucking hard is this? How fucking hard is this? You've got all the room in the world for Donk Donkerson versus Rick Rickerson, and you don't have time for fucking Patchy Mix? If you can't make time for him, you're fucked. You're fucked. Fix your product, please.
Yes. All right. Change your dungarees too while you're at it. I mean, come on.
Hey, I'm gonna later.
There it is. There it is. That's going to burst fabric and porcelain. Let's go to topic number 5, and it's This Week in Boxing. Luke, we did see 2 press conferences this week for the rescheduled Gervonta Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach Jr. PBC pay-per-view that will happen in March. New city, of course, Brooklyn, New York. But Tank took over the headlines 4.5 hours late to the first press conference that took place in Brooklyn. Then he spent a lot more time talking about that 2025 would be the end of his career in his last year as a fighter than anything else. Now, he would go on to tell Dan Canobio, and we have the clip here, that it was more about mental health, which is certainly respect. Let's listen into that.
That's why I don't want to box no more. I want to do therapy, right? But I feel as though if I do therapy, it will lose the fire that I have inside me. I want everything out of me, Wes, so I don't never think about fighting again. I don't think about even getting angry, you know what I mean? Because I have 2 girls, 2 daughters. I'm wanting to be much softer, you know what I mean? Be more humble and things like that.
Luke, he would go on to call the boxing business garbage and trash and say, that's why I want to get out of it. So do you look at this as like a positive, almost cry for help, someone taking control of their life, or a boxing superstar doing the Conor McGregor, Tyson Fury out every other week or month? I'm retired. I'm not, the Ryan Garcia bit. Because I don't love a lot of the behavior that Tank brought to the table in his return to the public eye. It didn't make me confident or excited or happy to see him, because he seems conflicted right now.
He seems like he's moving into a different part of his life. And I'll be honest with you, I think therapy cannot fix you unless you want it to fix you, right? It's not medicine that you take and it alters your brain chemistry. You have to give yourself to the process. And so is there a world where he gives himself to the process and then comes out and realizes he doesn't want to fight anymore? Yes. Yes, that is very, very possible. You know, Floyd Mayweather was very, very driven by status and money and history. I mean, I think Tank is moved by some of those things, but not nearly to the same extent as Floyd, not nearly to the same extent. And he's already made, you know, how much would you say he's made in his career, BC? Has he made 100 million total? Maybe not quite. 50?
Not quite, but yeah, could be 50.
Let's say conservatively 50 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. He doesn't, you know, necessarily need to work anymore at that point. And I've said this before, dude. Tank grew up in Baltimore, and anyone who knows anything about Baltimore, it's a charming city, but it's got a lot of problems. And he didn't just grow up there. He grew up in like one of the most outrageously fucked up situations in Baltimore you could even imagine. And at some point, you have, like, when he's done a lot of bad things. He was in jail recently, for crying out loud. But one thing you have to kind of understand about some of these guys is, like, to the extent that you or I have a civilized view of the world, is because we were lucky enough to have people in our lives make us do that. And Tank, for the most part, I mean, up until recently, I don't think really ever had that. Not the same kind of thing in the same kind of way. And I think as he gets older and your biology changes and who you change as a person, he's beginning to recognize that those civilizing forces are good for him and make him happier. And he's moving towards that. That, I think, if that continues, he absolutely will lose his desire to fight, to attain status, to, you know, you name it. I don't know if he's there yet, but it does seem to me, BC, I'm not even judging him for it. I think he's moving to another part of his life. What makes it kind of interesting is it's one thing for a fighter to have this, like, avarice and greed, to, like, want to be the biggest name and blah, 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 and then take easy challenges. I'm not excusing the accusations of ducking or saying that they're not valid. Like, is he fighting the best guys he could be fighting? Like, no, he's not. He's absolutely not. There's just no way around that. At the same time, it's like, he doesn't give a fuck.
Well, I think that's my problem, that he doesn't give a F. So not only is the boxing ring the worst place to be if that's the case, but for all the distractions or missteps he's done outside the ring, the thing we've always relied upon is he delivers inside of it, delivers in the build to the promotion. So to see him, I mean, look, whether this is just entitled athletes or not, Keith Idek of Uncrowned reported that Tank didn't even leave Miami on the private jet until after this press conference started. So it's like that happens. And then talking about booking future fights, he's just like, this business is garbage. The belts mean nothing to me. And then here's him talking about a fight people really want to see, him against Shakur Stevenson, and the dude just wants nothing to do with it.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about after this year. So them fights can still happen. But after this year, I'm out of.
Could we see you in Shakur before you go?
Why do you think about retiring? For what? Who have Shakur? What have Shakur done? What have he done in the sport? He haven't done nothing. The young one is looking more better than him. The Keyshawn. Keyshawn looking way more better than this nigga. So I keep screaming this nigga name. He haven't done nothing. Keyshawn haven't even done nothing.
So what do you say to those who say that you might be afraid? His name for? So what do you say to those who might?
Didn't know the N-word was coming. Didn't know.
I mean,
but hold on. That is so clearly ridiculous. Like, I appreciate Tank growing as a person. I really do. It's hard to actually grow as a person, and sometimes life forces it on you. And I don't want to take that away from him. But it's like you're asking, what has Shakur done? Dude, infinitely more than Frank Martin. Like, what? What are we talking about here?
Titles in 3 divisions. He has a belt in the same division Tank has. He's trying to fight everybody, but he can't get the fights. I mean, I'm not saying he's the most exciting, and I know I've got, I put my stock in him. I think he's going to be awesome and going to be great and is the real deal. But it's why we need fights like this to happen. This is not the time to say he hasn't fought, Tank, or it's not the time for Tank to say Shakur hasn't fought anybody. He's done nothing, because the pressure is on Tank to fight the type of fights that people really want to see now. And we're in an era with Turkey around where there's so much money where it's harder to lean on reasons why these guys shouldn't fight. So look, again, if Tank doesn't want to be there, I would obviously rather him not, just like anyone else, but hasn't been a great demeanor. We have a little final highlight here of them barking, meaning Tank and Roach. Let's see this tape and get your reaction if you're fired up for this fight, because Lamont Roach is not backing down at the very least.
Right now, I'm not really big on getting into it and stuff like that. I'm really out of it right now.
What?
Who said that? You said what? You said what? Yeah, that's why I've been waiting for the niggas to talk. How much you want back? How much you want to bet? Because I came up here alone. How much y'all want back? How much you want back? Just call it out. Huh? 100? That's a bet. What's your name? Al, where you from?
Yeah, cuz.
Tank, you feeling better now. Tank feeling better.
Yeah.
All 3 of y'all want bet 100? I like to show people they not who they say they are. And I like to prove to people that
yeah, I mean, who said who ain't what they said they is? I know.
I like to prove to the people they come with. Now, I promise you, you better lead them home. You better lead the females home. On my mother, you better lead the females home and the kids. On my mother.
Yeah.
Now watch this.
They gonna
watch.
They gonna
now watch.
Is that all it takes for you? Is that all it takes? Just a little comment? Nah, but that's what I want though. I don't want you to fight me like you saying you going out.
Always go like this.
Nah, but I'm saying you just said you feel like you going out.
And they go to sleep.
I don't want you to feel like you going out.
I'm telling you. He gonna be mad. He gonna be mad. Watch.
I'm glad I could do that for you, brother.
They woke him up, Luke.
Yeah, that was all real stupid. What the hell was Lamont wearing on his head?
I don't know. But I have to say, Tank turned back into Tank the Fighter there a little bit. But I'm happy. Look, when they did the face-off, Lamont's big. You know what I mean? Look, you sat down with him on your channel. Do you get the feeling like we're heading into a very interesting challenge for Tank?
I mean, if it wasn't for... If Tank wasn't having, these like, whatever you want to call, he's having issues, challenges, whatever, I don't think there'd be any question about it. And I obviously think he still needs to be considered the favorite. I'm not predicting some kind of an upset, but you know as well as I do, dude, how many times guys have shown up with like a half-assed attitude, or, they just don't want it like they used to anymore. And then, the bottom drops out on them in ways you never thought possible. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying, got a little bit of a spidey sense of that potentially being on the menu.
Notice Tank said, "I'm here alone." No Leonard Ellerby there, and none of his trainers came with him to New York. He looked like he was there alone. Luke, that was kind of
I don't quite understand. Did Ellerby get fired? Where was Calvin Ford? I don't know. I don't know.
I was unable to watch at full length the one that they had in DC there, but we'll see what goes on ahead of that fight. Hey, a quick note, Saturday, Top Rank has a great doubleheader from Phoenix, Arizona, and it's going to be rematches of super fun title fights. You remember last December when Rafael Espinoza, no one knew who this guy was from Mexico, and a big underdog against Robeisy Ramirez. He knocked down Ramirez in the 12th and final round and took home that super exciting upset victory to claim the WBO featherweight title. They're rematching in the co-main, and the odds are basically a pick-em. But how about the rematch in the main event? Emmanuel Navarrete will defend his WBO junior lightweight title against Oscar Valdez. Now, even though Navarrete won their first meeting by wide scores on 2 of the 3 cards, it was an absolute war. Navarrete's right hand was busted up. Valdez's right eye was swollen shut, and it was a war. But Luke, how about this? Navarrete's last 2 fights, he had that draw with Conceição, even though Navarrete dropped him twice, and then he lost against Dennis Baranchyk when he moved up to 135. So with Oscar Valdez coming off that knockout of Liam Wilson, we're going to see a war. We already knew that, but we may see an interesting rematch here. I'm fired up.
Dude, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I can predict exactly what's going to happen, but just look at this shit. You're going to get round after round after round of that. What is not to love? Can't wait.
And also at 140 pounds on DAZN from Puerto Rico, Liam Paro will defend that IBF title that he took by upset against Sabril Matias. He's got Richardson Hitchens unbeaten coming in, and the odds there, plus 100 for Hitchens, minus 120 for Paro. So very good matchup there on DAZN. And Luke, to close before we close with the fans, the rumors are spreading fast that Canelo and Crawford could be a thing, that it could happen in May, that it would be a PBC pay-per-view, and that Turkey would be involved. Now, Canelo did a public appearance yesterday where he said that he's willing to work with Turkey now. He said he's willing to talk about it. And Turkey went on Ariel's show and said, I just need to get a contact in Canelo's camp, and I want to talk to him man-to-man, one-on-one, and I think we can make this happen. Luke, is this happening in May in Las Vegas? And are you fired up, or am I getting way too caught up in turkey claws here?
I don't think we're going to see Canelo take a tough fight until it's his very last one.
Oh, that would. So you think we're going the Jake route? Because
I think he fights Jake Paul long before he fights David Benavidez.
Okay, but this ain't Benavidez. It's Crawford. I think it's doable. Put the money on the table.
I think he fights Jake Paul before he fights Terrence Crawford. What
I'm saying is they're paying Usyk $114 million in this rematch with Fury.
Yeah.
Oh, $114 million. What if they're like, hey, Canelo, to fight Crawford, here's $80 million.
Why would you fight Crawford for 80 when you can fight Jake for 80?
Dude, Canelo would be favored, and he probably should win, but it would be obviously amazing to watch Bud dare to be great on that level.
Canelo just fought Edgar Berlanga, who is not good, and sold a gazillion pay-per-view buys and made $1 gazillion. Why the fuck would you fight someone tough if your fans won't ever hold you accountable for taking weak challenges?
I'll tell you why. Because Benavidez and Morrell are fighting each other, not like Canelo was going to fight either of them anyway. Better be even Bivol are fighting each other. There's nobody else to fight unless Canelo wants like a Eubank fight or someone that's that much of a step down.
Oh, okay. Well, let's put some likelihood on that. I think Canelo
Luke,
is like,
I choose to be an optimist in this space. Okay,
I'm
but
not being negative. I'm simply saying, what is the evidence that tells you he's seeking tough fights?
He said publicly he's willing to listen to Turkey, and in the past he said, "I don't need you." So hey, Luke, he wants money. That's what he wants. He wants the money.
Jesus, Anthony Smith has missed weight 207.5.
Oh boy, let's just make a heavyweight fight. All right, Luke, let's close with the fans here. morningcombat@gmail.com is what we put out there for you, the fans. We'll start off. I think we have one dead wrong. That's when we get corrected, put on trial, but you better bring it. Do we have a dead wrong intro or no?
No, we don't have shit on this show.
All right, here we go. Luke, this is Daz. Mahalo. You know Daz. He puts that smack on that ass.
Daz, back up on that ass and give these motherfuckers a blast from the past.
Biatch. All right, here's Daz. He says, aloha, donks. At 30 minutes and 40 seconds of Monday's episode, LT mentions how Kasangane and Loughnane are two guys who could have won back-to-back tourneys for PFL. LT, that's dead wrong. Loughnane was the 2022 champion, but failed to make the playoffs in 2023. Only Impa was attempting back-to-back, although Brendan was going for the non-consecutive. Mahalo, thanks for everything. Shout out to the MK Discord. It's Daz.
All right, fair point. I'll take that L.
Well, we have that other segment where you guys make weird shit and we laugh at it. Hey, this one's called Fan Submissions.
You've got mail.
Viewers.
All right, finishing strong here. Here's Eric. He says, yo, LTBC in Long Island. I'm back in your male viewers box again, this time repping MK at UFC Macau. I'm the one with the MK shirt on, and I live in Phuket, Thailand. My buddy lives in
Phuket.
Fuck it, Luke. My buddy lives in Hong Kong. We're both massive MMA fans, MK donks. And since you suggested we're at least a couple last time that I wrote in, I'll add that we're both happily partnered to some
with each other. These two, and I mean, that's great.
With some fantastic Asian ladies who are far too sophisticated to join us watch people bleed in a cage.
Yeah,
following LT's advice, we got to the event early, and that was a great decision. The near exclusively Asian crowd was loud as hell and popped for the knockdown sub attempts in every Chinese fighter on the card. To top that off, I saw a Jan fanboy since his I've been a Jan fanboy since his victory over Aldo, and his impressive victory over Figgy made my first MMA event pretty special. Luke, he would go on to talk about a hilarious.
Okay, enough of these
Colombian.
photos. I mean, this is
okay. There you go. He had a story about margaritas in a Colombian, but this is a lot of words at this point.
Yeah, don't care.
Thank
but
you,
nice.
Eric.
I appreciate the pictures. I do care about that. Thank you.
All right, let's hear from Long Island Rob. Not Nosita. He says, hey, Long Island Rob here, sending you guys my thanks. Last Friday, I cornered my longtime friend and training partner, Disco Danny Fox, for his first MMA match. It was also my first time cornering in a fight. And when I asked you guys for advice, you really helped me out. I came here prepared, and it helped me not to look like a complete donk. The fight fought out to a draw, even though they announced that Fox had won, but Fox fought his heart out after two different opponents pulled out the day before. We later found out that his opponent was training at the AKA gym as recently as last year. We're ready to fix some holes in our game and make our return in January. Luke, what do you think of this guy's ability in here, as his walkout was to ladies' night, and this is the first minute of the fight where it got crazy?
Well, I mean, they're wearing shin pads, so it's an amateur fight. So you have to have, real measured response, but I think he fought tough, and that's all you can really ask of him.
The guy got in shape. Do you give it up for Disco Danny Fox right there?
Yeah. It looks like he was in good physical condition. Could be a little bit of that. Could be a little bit of that Ozempic. Could be a little bit of that TRT. Could be a little bit of that, D-ball.
Or maybe just addies and baddies for Disco. All right, look, you know what I mean? That's the
skips and bits.
All right, we got something here from It's a Fur Coat, Rhonda. Luke, you want to...
Do you know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Colombia? Cuarto de libra con queso.
Yeah, there it is.
That's actually not what they call it, but yes.
With John Travolta's Pulp Fiction face right there. And one more from Deftco.
Wash your hands after using the restroom. Otherwise, this becomes a little of that dick touching.
I guess Defco believes this is on brand for MK.
Yes. Hey, I'm looking up. You know what? I was now thinking about this. I've never been to McDonald's in Colombia. Now I'm wondering what they call. What was it? The double quarter pounder or the quarter pounder?
I think just the quarter pounder.
So they do call it that. I was totally wrong. Cuarto de libra con queso. Claro que sí. Yeah. Wow.
All right.
There's also hold on. They have the Magnifica. They have the Doble Magnifica. And then they have the Mick Fiesta Jr.
All right. That? They ain't got Mick Rib over there, though. I'll tell you that much. Right?
Oh, they also have the Mick Pollo. How about that?
Okay.
That's fun.
That is fun. I'd like to eat out of Colombian McDonald's with you, Luke, but then I would get stabbed as soon as I walk outside.
Nah. I've been to El Corral, which is like their big one. I've been to Frisbee, which is like their kind of like their KFC. I've been to they have it called waffles or crepes and waffles, which is a big chain there.
How's their fast food burger quality? compared to the U.S.?
High.
Oh,
very high.
All right.
Now, with the caveat that I've actually never been to McDonald's, but the other ones I've been to, high, very high. Yes.
All right. Speaking of high, Long Island Luke, it was great to do the show with you today. Are you over there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, guys. Everyone join me on Saturday doing the full card watch along with Gaff. Plenty of bong rips. Main card minute on YouTube. Go give it a follow.
What does your significant other do when you and Gaff are blowing each other during this the main card minute?
You know, Saturday's my day, Luke. She does her own thing on Saturdays, but yeah, you know, she hears us giggling from the other room.
What a great lady. She puts up with that. That's great to see. Morningcombat@gmail.com, by the way, if you want to get in on fan subs or dead wrong. I mean, look, they're surviving. Their segments, they're available to the people, right? They're resources for our community.
Yeah. Morningcombat@gmail.com, as BC indicated. Morningcombat@gmail.com to reach the show and tell us to go fuck ourselves. You can do that
There
too.
it is. You can follow us on those socials right there and on our YouTube channels as well, along with Long Island Luke's there. Check out that main card minute. Luke Thomas, I hope you enjoy UFC 310. I'm sure people will check you out tonight on the LFA stream, Saturday on your YouTube channel. Anything else you want to say to these people?
We'll see you on Monday in studio this time. Fingers crossed that Amtrak doesn't fuck us, but it should be fine. And let's have some good fights. Let's have a good weekend. See me tonight. See me tomorrow. See me for BC. We'll have a good time on Monday as well.
All right. And we'll also, you know, too bad Aljo got dicked down, Luke. But hey, there it is. All right.
You said it, not me.
All right. Well, check it out. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you. We'll be back in 2 and 2. Okay. There you go. All right. There it is.